Chapter 61 The First War. War is mother to us all. As soon as my confidence was beginning to rise, just when I thought victory had been secured, that was the exact moment I was thrown back into the pit of despair. It always seems to work like that, doesn't it, Gandalf? I continue to support my colony brethren in the battle for our future. I'm totally exhausted by this point, having bitten so many times the muscles in my face are completely sore. What's even more irritating is that, in order to support my fellow workers as much as possible, I've been deliberately wounding my enemies but not taking the extra time to finish them off before moving on to the next target, leaving the crippled victims behind for the rest of the ants to deal with. Despite my best efforts, there have definitely been casualties on the ant side. Without an upgraded carapace like mine, their defenses were like paper in the face of the rabbit's fangs, and some were instantly killed when receiving a bite to the head. Others have fallen to the centipede's claws and jaws, battling in places I couldn't see or reach in time. My heart is heavy knowing that some of my own siblings have been laid to rest as a result of my own actions. I have to comfort myself with the knowledge that victory will benefit the colony as a whole tremendously, and that is the goal the workers truly strive for at all times. However, almost as if mocking me, the ground begins to shudder beneath my feet. Powerful vibrations rattle through the ground over and again, surely in response to some rather tremendous feat. Please don't tell me. My despair takes material form when crashing through the trees in an appearance worthy of a final boss is a massive titan croc, flanked on either side by two croca beasts almost like henchmen following their leader. Why are you stupid monsters so organized in such a dumb way all of a sudden? The new arrivals growl menacingly, the rumbles vibrating the air so powerful they send my antennae dancing. The lead titan croc surveys the field of lesser monsters with discernible greed lighting up his eyes. Even for an evolved creature like him, the sheer amount of food here will be enough to fuel his mutation as well as the two following him. Lured by the noise and the aroma of biomass, these big baddies have arrived to wrap up the battle and stake their claim over the food here. Not many monsters would be willing to battle such colossal powerhouses. What kind of suicidal creature would take on those kinds of odds? This ant right here. I refuse to surrender the spoils of war. The colony has already sacrificed precious workers in this battle, and I refuse to see us walk away with nothing to show for it because a few fat crocodiles turned up. The only thing that has changed is the menu. Of course, completely exhausted and punctured with minor wounds, I have no idea how I'm supposed to deal with these powerful monsters. The Titan Croc alone could probably fireball us all to hell, not to mention when he has help. I barely have enough acid in the tank for a single shot. Then I see something. At this moment, salvation is delivered. In our darkest hour, she will be the light. From the corner of my eye I can see the top of the anthill begin to shudder, as if a large monster were pushing through the tunnel inside. The very top of the hill shakes, some of the loose dirt collapsing inwards and more spilling out, rolling down the slope as the shaking and shuddering becomes more and more pronounced. Bursting from the top of the hill comes an enormous ant, her long antennae swinging angrily through the air as she clacks her massive mandibles threateningly. With another heave, the ant pulls the rest of her body from the tunnel, which was never dug wide enough for her to move through easily. When the colony was threatened, she once again ignored her guards and rushed to the battle. Easily 5 times my size, the queen looks down on the battle imperiously from the top of the hill, her antennae already beginning to surge with healing light. Mother is here. And she looks pissed. It's true, her eyes have a dangerous glint in them as she takes in the scene. A pile of wounded struggling ants at the foot of the hill and the deadly struggle continuing within the trees where ants and centipedes continue to clash violently. Then she looks at the huge interlopers, still eyeing off the battle and awaiting their moment to strike. I'm nervous now. If the queen is killed here, then everything will be lost. I wasn't too concerned when only rabbits and centipedes were about, since I didn't think they'd be able to harm Her Majesty at all, but it's different now. The croca beast may not be up to the task, but the titan surely is. Come to think of it though, I really have no idea how strong the queen is in a fight. I mean, her primary purpose is to lay eggs, which isn't exactly a combat role. She also has specialized in a healing magic, which again doesn't lend itself to direct combat. I'm really worried. Mother doesn't seem to share my concerns as she chitters angrily and after a brief moment of concentration releases her powerful healing spell. A wave of light rolls out from her antennae, flowing over the ground and encompassing all of the ants in the wounded pile before rushing into the forest like the tide. The healing energy laps against me like the waters of a river, and I greedily drink it in, recharging my energy and healing my small wounds, restoring my HP. All around me the workers are being healed and re-energized, throwing themselves into the fight with renewed frenzy. This wave of healing has stamped an end to the hopes of the centipedes in this conflict. Already outnumbered, the return of injured ants to the combat has only tilted things further against them. Their snapping claws sound despondent and hopeless where before they were aggressive and vicious, almost as if they can sense their impending doom. The three large interlopers, the Croca beasts and their apparent leader, the Titan Croca, have seen enough. With the combat reaching an end, they want to sweep away whatever resistance remains and claim the biomass for themselves. Their indignation is almost palpable as they watch a few small worker hatchlings starting to drag away the food. A few rabbit bodies are already being taken over to the nest from the back of the battle. Looking at their furious eyes, I can almost hear them smirking as they think, how dare these puny monsters take away our biomass. Know your place, midgets. Up yours, Croc. I will let you experience the shout of my soul. As the massive Titan Croc rears back to his full height and steps forward through the trees, his two subordinate henchmen advance on his flanks, looking like little bullies attaching themselves to a larger one. For some reason it really bothers me to see these damn crocs cooperating. Since when did this sort of thing happen? Aren't you guys supposed to be the lonely kings of the jungle sort of thing? As they advance forward toward the fight, I try to blend in with the rest of the workforce, gradually pushing myself towards the massive beasts through the bustling crowd of workers. As I do so, I reach internally with my mind, grasping hold of the vaporous energies within my core. With the force of my mind alone, I direct my mana to flow out, concentrating it into a tight ball in my throat. As the monsters draw closer, powerful fangs gleaming in the brilliant light of the forest, I continue to force more and more energy out of my core and into the powerfully swirling marble of mana I've formed within me. Idly, I wonder what might happen to my head if I were to lose control of the mana as I draw it out and condense it. Best not to consider it, really. Mana shaping has reached level 2. Forceful mana has reached level 2. Oh ho. Even in this situation I can't help but be a little excited at my mana skills improving. Immediately I can feel the process of shifting and condensing the mana become slightly easier. It isn't much, but every little bit helps. In my peripheral vision I can see the queen, unsatisfied with merely healing the colony, has begun to advance down the hill towards the battle. I can't help but think things are going to get very dicey in a moment. Chapter 62, The First War, Winner Takes It All. The pressure continues to build within my throat, the small spherical mass of mana is becoming tighter and tighter, the dense energy fluctuating and spinning wildly as more and more mana is forced into it. I'm reaching the limits of my tolerance, I have to act soon. I can see the queen advancing into the forest, her personal swarm of guards being forced to move with her. It's clear that she intends to personally enter the battle and defend her colony against these large interlopers. I think if these damned Croca beasts hadn't shown up, she would probably have been content to just release her healing spell and then retreat back into the nest, but with such a large portion of her workforce under threat, she must feel compelled to act. A caring mother, striding into battle for her children. It's very moving, Gandalf. And no, I'm not crying. I can't cry, I'm an ant, but within, I am deeply moved by this maternal devotion. For the moment I'll gloss over that this situation is entirely my fault. On my back, Tiny has continued to survey the battlefield, hooting aggressively at our foes and occasionally lashing out with his little fists whenever he could locate a target. I'm impressed the little fellow has managed to maintain his seat all this time. It couldn't have been easy in the swirling melee. I'm drawing closer and closer to the Titan Croc even as they are drawing closer and closer to me. They've almost reached the ants now, just a few more meters and those claws will begin to reap a dark harvest of ant experience. I won't let it happen. Suddenly accelerating, I charge forward out of the pack, brushing aside my fellow workers in my mad rush to reach the crocodiles before they are able to act. I want to draw their attention away from the colony as much as possible. I have to be fast. Go. My force mana sphere is as dense as I can make it. No matter how I try, I can't force any more energy into it. It is wildly spinning inside me, a tiny ultra-dense, hot fog of mana just begging to be released. As I reach the edge of the field, I climb onto the back of a nearby worker and leap into the air. Directly before my face, the Titan croc looms. Cruel eyes stare directly into mine. Massive jaws part to reveal a wealth of barbed teeth, ready to snap out my life. Deliver to you fresh like the cold mountain winds, receive the shout of my people. Opening my mouth, I finally release the energy I've contained within. Like a bullet from a gun, like a directed explosion, the mana bursts out with irresistible force, as if I shot a cannonball from my mouth. Time seems to slow down in this moment. Or perhaps my perception speeds up. The chaotic motion all around me stills and the small details become larger and larger in my eyes. I can see the huge bulk of the Titan croc in front of me as I float through the air, its maw opening wide, ropes of saliva clinging to each tooth, ready to crunch down on this meal that has delivered itself by airmail directly. The two croca beasts on either side ignore me, preparing to advance into the horde of ants with claws bared. Their arms are already being drawn back, thick cables of muscle bulging beneath their scales. Behind me, the workers continue to battle the centipedes, a ferocious melee of insect versus insect in all of its savage glory. Only a few workers have responded to the impending threat of croca beast. I can see their antennae slowly twitching in the air as they turn to face this new threat, no fear or shock showing in their faces, only dedication. Then the magic is released. A concussive force erupts, bursting into the air with the power of a battering ram. With my heightened senses in this moment, I can see the very air itself warping and twisting around the fearsome energy. It was difficult to aim after leaping into the air, so my blast doesn't smash into the Titan croc's mouth as I'd hoped, but rather cannons into its chest. At that moment of impact, I could see the change come over the monster's face, an ever so slight flicker of surprise registering in the eyes. Then the strange sensation of time slowing ends, and the Titan croc catapults away into a tree like a crocodilic missile. The tree shatters in half as the enormous mass of monster crashes into it like a thunderbolt. The burst of noise is deafening. Then silence. Then Gandalf. You have slain level 12 Crescente Gula Garalosh. You have gained experience. You have reached level 8. One hit. KO. Are you kidding me? The Titan croca lies amidst the broken remnants of the shattered tree, unmoving. The monster's massive chest appears to have been caved in, as if struck by a giant's hammer. The two smaller croca beasts are wearing an expression that could only be the heartless monster equivalent of shock. I land on my feet before them, looking up at their crocodile faces. They look down at me, not seeming to quite understand what it is they are looking at. Then Mother arrives. Moving with the irresistible power of a freight train, the queen crashes into the croca beast on my left. Her immense jaws immediately scissor the croca beast across its midsection, directly cutting the dreadful monster in half. Holy heck, Mother! How much biomass did you spend upgrading your mandibles? They look sharper than mine. After defeating the first croca beast so decisively, the queen turns toward the second, her powerful mandibles clicking ominously, covered in ichor. The monsters in this place do not know the word retreat, and the remaining croca beast shows no sign of backing down. I don't know if these creatures are incredibly brave or just immensely stupid, but they do not retreat. The queen doesn't slow down, aggressively advancing towards the final monster, who roars and swings one powerful claw towards the larger creature. The queen doesn't even react, allowing the claws to rake into her carapace. The force of that impact would have sent me flying, but she doesn't budge, cold eyes staring down at the croca beast with contempt. Only when the croca draws back its arms do I see that the blow hasn't even left a mark on the shiny dark carapace of Mother. Exactly how highly upgraded is this queen? Then I remember the dedicated workers, constantly battling for food and returning as much of it as possible to the nest for the queen to eat, not only giving her the energy to produce the young but also allowing her to take in ferocious amounts of biomass. There is no doubt she is the most highly mutated member of the colony, probably possessing many mutation advanced to boot. For whatever reason, her advancements seem to be the less ostentatious kind, as I can't really see a visible difference in her carapace or mandibles, yet they are clearly immensely strong. Not wasting the opportunity given by the opponent's reckless strike, Mother opens her jaws wide and plunges them down, all of her crushing weight behind the strike. Even the powerful croca beast is no match for the queen in a contest in strength and is smashed into the ground, pinned by those potent mandibles. After adjusting her grip slightly, Mother puts the beast out of its misery. So strong. What the hell was that? I don't think even the Titan croc would have been able to resist her strength for long. I had no idea you were so strong, mother. The queen doesn't seem too fazed by the experience. Standing tall once again, she surveys the battlefield with her cool, imperious gaze. Merely being in her presence has driven the workforce into a frenzy, redoubling their efforts and driving the centipedes completely into the dirt. The battle is all but over, many workers already having switched to transport duty, moving injured ants out of the fight and breaking up food for transport back to the nest. We've won. The spoils of war shall be ours. When the queen spots me dancing in triumph in front of her, she makes her way over to me, suddenly casting her immense shadow over my face. Hi. How are you, mother? Raising one powerful foreleg, the queen suddenly slaps me on the head. Not hard enough to injure me, but certainly enough to smack my head down into the ground and make my brain spin. Before I can recover myself, she has already turned and started to make her way back to the nest, a detachment of workers following her every move. Did I just get told off by mother? This is quite depressing. I think I can understand why. Despite the fact that this victory will provide the fuel that will ignite the colony's engine, at least 30 workers have laid their lives down here. Those 30 workers would still be alive if not for me starting a fight so close to the nest, drawing in the workforce and being unable to contain the conflict. The other thing I hadn't considered is that although this food might allow the queen to lay many eggs, there are now 30 less workers to help hunt for them, feed them and care for them, which will stretch the remaining workforce right to the limit. Sigh. I hope the queen isn't too mad. I'm definitely reflecting on my mistakes. Chapter 63 Core Concern. The aftermath of a monster battle is a fairly gruesome place, especially when it's ants picking over the field. This area of the forest has a veritable carpet of deceased monsters. Black-furred rabbits mixed with centipedes and the 2 wolf dragons cover the ground. On top of them, the ants make another layer, bustling with insect urgency. Their job is now the rather messy work of butchery. Most of these workers are still hatchlings, only a few having evolved into mature workers like me. This means they can't carry an entire monster body back into the nest in one go. Instead, they are forced to break up the food and transport it in pieces. All around me, this somewhat distasteful work is being done. Workers using their mandibles to carve away at the food and then lifting their prize and merrily sprinting off towards the nest in order to make their delivery as quickly as possible and return for more. Even with over 60 workers here, it is going to take a little while before the work is done. With the queen now having retreated back to the nest, I've decided to stick around until the workers have completed their task. If more monsters come to axe the vulture and try to steal our hard-won prize, I want to be here to help defend it. I didn't work this hard and make the queen mad just to risk losing everything we worked for. Still, looking over the remains of the battlefield, I feel a slight sense of accomplishment. Each of those monster bodies represents experience that has been funneled into the workers already, fueling their growth and bringing more and more of them closer to evolution. As long as the colony can last until the next generation emerges, then we will be in a tremendous spot, growing explosively and becoming much safer. Tiny has already leapt from my back and started to feast, his little hands shoveling the biomass into his face with incredible speed. Slow down there, little buddy, you might get a stomach ache. I'm pleased to see his increased appetite. The sooner he grows and begins to show the fearsome strength of the monster I took the core from, the better off we'll be. Recalling that his core came from creature strong enough to go toe-to-toe with a Titan croc makes me hopeful that Tiny will be able to exert that same kind of strength in the future. With all of the monsters here focused on the biomass, I have a different prize in my sights. There are a few large, evolved monsters here, and I am desperately hoping that they will have some cores for me. I refuse to evolve without maxing out my core. I move over to the 2 wolf dragons first and begin chewing through them, not just gaining biomass but also hunting for a possible core. My own core is deep within the center of my body, and it has been thereabouts in every monster I've found it in so far, so I have to eat my way down to find it. I gain 2 biomass from the first before I decide there probably isn't a core, and rather than finish it off I rush to the other one, pushing a few workers out of the way in order to secure my place to hunt for that precious sphere. You have gained biomass. Compatible monster core detected. Would you like to reinforce your core or reconstitute a monster? Bwahahaha. The prize is mine. Even if I have the core mechanic skill, I'm not willing to waste any monster core on practicing it until I have achieved my most important goal, the maxed out core. Absorb that core. As the core melts into the air, I can feel the energy flowing into my own, strengthening and enlarging it, increasing its capacity to store the mana that infuses this world. Excellent. Keep hustling, Anthony. There is more to go. Having checked both of the wolf dragons, I now abandon the center of the battle and sprint over to where a few workers are starting to pick over the croca beasts. Mine, 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 mine. Pushing aside a few workers, I greedily dive into the first croca beast. This one was the first monster the queen directly cut in half, making it fairly easy to look for the core. After barely eating at all, I decide there isn't any core to be had and I hustle over to the next one. Hopefully my worker brethren don't feel I'm being too greedy. If I can evolve with a fully maxed core, I'll be able to repay the investment many-fold. Forgive me, guys. You have gained biomass. Compatible monster core detected. Would you like to reinforce your core or reconstitute a monster? Yes, SSSS. Reinforce that core. Once again, the pleasant stretching sensation occurs as my core absorbed more energy, growing more dense and larger. The power. With this, my max MP has reached 40, which is double what I was able to sustain before evolving. I kind of expect that this means I've reached my maximum. Only one way to find out. Crossing my metaphorical toes, I move towards the remains of the Titan croc. The body lies leaning against the stump of the shattered tree, its chest a broken ruin. I cannot believe I was able to fell such a massive creature in one blow. The power of forceful mana is not to be underestimated. It may be a little cumbersome to use in a fight right now, but as I get more and more level and my core becomes stronger, what sort of power will I be able to unleash? My mind is boggling. Concentrate on the present, Anthony. Control your drool, man. I tentatively approach the Titan croc. I almost can't believe that it's dead. I feel like the massive creature could just open its eyes and start wrecking my face at any moment. It's impossible though, the all-seeing voice of Gandalf spoke to me. The beast is surely dead. The whole situation just feels so unreal, I guess. It wasn't long ago I riding on the coattails of one of these monsters, depending on it for safety and feeding on a few scraps it left behind. Now I have conquered one and will feast on biomass. No need to hesitate any further, dig in. You have consumed a new source of biomass, Crescente Gula Garalosh. You are awarded 1 biomass. Basic profile of the Crescente Gula Garalosh unlocked. Crescente Gula Garalosh, growing Ma Garalosh, the evolved form of the infant Garalosh. This still growing offspring of the Garalosh has reached its development stage. Able to convert mana to fire, beware of the fireballs released from its mouth. What the hell? Are you telling me that this enormous monster, the beast of nightmare that I have dubbed the Titan croc, is still in its development stage? Exactly how stupidly massive are these damn things supposed to get, Gandalf? And again with the Garalosh. All of these damnable crocodiles are the offspring of a single monster. Is this thing like the croc version of Godzilla? How would something that big even more through the tunnels down here? Gah, I don't even want to guess. I still have very little idea what lies in the tunnels beneath this place. For all I know, if you go deeper you'll find even larger open spaces than this, huge open areas the size of continents. Why the hell not? I didn't think an underground area like this one could possibly exist, but here I am, chewing on a giant croc monster right underneath a sparkly glowing tree with purple leaves. So who knows? I'm not going to try and prejudge what I might see anymore. I've been shocked so many times I no longer see the point. You have gained biomass. Thanks, Gandalf. Nice to be kept informed. Compatible special monster core detected. Would you like to reinforce your core or reconstitute a monster? Awa. Special monster core? What the heck is that? After thinking for a moment I decide to dig out the core and take a look at it. After a more minutes of chomping I'm able to free the core and drag it out with my mandibles. It's frickin' huge. What the hell is with this core? It's massive. Easily larger than the core that birthed Tiny even. This Titan croc must have reinforced the heck out of his core for it to reach this tremendous size. I'm absolutely gobsmacked. I can't be exactly sure how large my own core is, but I'm certain it cannot be even close to half the size, maybe it's a fifth as large. According to Gandalf, I can absorb this bad boy. Seems bizarre that a core this large is still compatible. Is it because the Titan Croc has also only evolved once? I feel a little nervous about this. It should be fine. Right? Reinforce my core? Your core has already reached maximum capacity for your level of evolution. Absorbing the special core will take you beyond this limit. Do you still wish to proceed? What the heck, Gandalf? So talkative all of a sudden. Why can't you just give me information at a time that isn't the last possible second? So my core has actually already capped out at 40 megapixels as I thought it might. For some reason this core is special and will allow me to further improve my core beyond the normal limit? Doesn't this just mean that my evolution will be even further fueled next time? Maybe there is a downside to absorbing the core now. Perhaps I'll only be able to draw limited benefit from the core, say only increasing my max MP by 4 points, whereas if I waited until after I evolved to absorb it I could take the full benefit and get 8. It still seems worth it to take the core now, knowing that a stronger monster core means more energy to fuel evolution. I just can't turn it down. Reinforce my core, Gandalf. Chapter 64. Right to the core. The enormous core, looking like a lustrous dark pearl, slowly begins to dissolve into the air before me. As it does so, the solid matter that makes it is released as energy that swirls and flows in the air, tiny particles dancing and spinning. Each individual particle eventually meets another, and then those two meet another, and in this way the individual dots of energy become grouped into flowing streams that trail each other. Eventually these streams begin to be drawn towards me, flowing directly through my physical self as if it weren't there and being drawn towards my core. As they grow closer, the energy acts almost as if it were water circling the drain, looping around the core in wide circles at first before the loop draws tighter and the flow faster, increasing in pace the closer it gets. As the energy finally begins meet my more, I can feel the spherical gem begin to grow, greedily absorbing every particle of light that touches it, using that energy to construct itself anew. More and more energy is flowing with every second, growing faster still as the enormous core continues to dissolve, releasing all of its potential. The spinning energy is no longer like a bath drain and more like a raging whirlpool. A veritable ocean of power being drawn deep into my core. It hurts. As my core expands further and further, a dull pain begins to throb in my abdomen. Distant at first and then sharper with each passing moment. I clench my mandibles and brace myself against it. Come on, Anthony. You can take it. More. 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 The pain continues to build until it is agony. My core is a screaming mass of pain, ultra dense and far larger than it should be for a creature of my strength. I can feel that deep inside, my core is unstable. Growing too quickly and holding too much energy. Damn, it hurts. Finally, the Titan Croc's immense core is completely gone, but the pain remains. The ripping agony flares every few seconds, causing me to almost collapse. Even Tiny has noticed something is wrong, coming over to place a gentle paw on my back. Thanks, little buddy. That's real nice. Ouch. Damn this core. I don't recall Gandalf mentioning the searing agony involved when pushing your core beyond your evolution level. With my willpower being sapped by fighting off this pain, I can't do much. Clearly, I check my status and the result shocks me into alertness again. MP 11/50. 50. No wonder the whole process was so painful. My core is literally a full 25% larger than a body at my level of evolution is supposed to be able to handle. Even though this process continues to cause such terrible sensations within me, I can't help but be excited for what this could mean for my next evolution. Will new, rare options be unlocked? Or could I just gain a heck more evolutionary energy to spend upgrading my stats? Perhaps this will provide enough for me to afford that subsidiary brain for magic. I've managed to amass 7 points of biomass so far from this battlefield, but looking at the remains of the Titan Croc, I've barely managed to touch it. I'm in so much pain that I seriously don't want to eat anymore. Frankly, I don't want to do anything anymore. I need a sleep. But I force myself to keep working. I refuse to let this wealth of biomass just go to the colony completely. They can have the rest, but this Titan Croc is mine. I'm allowed to be this selfish, right? I'll conveniently ignore that I gobbled up all of the cores from the large monsters at this point. With Tiny helping me along, I limp towards another tree near the Titan croc and begin to excavate a temporary nest. I would normally just drag this food back to our own little chamber within the colony, but right now I don't think I have the strength. The excavate upgrade shows its power here, and I'm able to dig out a surprisingly roomy chamber beneath the tree relatively quickly. With that job done, I drag myself over to the remains and start the unpleasant job of breaking it up into pieces and then burying them in my new hiding hole. The carcass is so large it takes almost an hour to complete this job, and several times I have to chase a few workers coming over to grab a bite. By the time I'm finished, the flaring agony I had experienced has receded to a lesser but consistent pain that batters at my mind constantly. Ugh! I hate this. The busy workforce has also completed their mission, transporting all of the biomass down into the main nest to be consumed there and fed to the brood. After one more look at the now bare area around me, I drag myself down into the chamber, and once Tiny has joined me, I close over the entrance. The long battle has finally ended and the colony has been victorious. Time for a nap. Zzzzzzzzzzz. I'm up. Several hours later, I startle myself out of torpor, snapping awake in an instant. Phew. Good sleep. The pain of my core has continued to fade over my nap and has now been downgraded to persistent ache. I can probably attribute this to my insides being squashed by the larger than intended core occupying too much real estate in there. Not to worry. As soon as I evolve, it'll be nice and snug in there once again. Looking at Tiny gradually shaking himself awake, I can see he has grown again after stuffing his face yesterday. Honestly, I think he's grown a little too large to comfortably fit on my back, which is a little sad, but I'm glad he's managing to get larger and stronger. You'll prove yourself useful eventually, you little ape. Now that my core has reached its maximum potential and then a bit more, I don't really begrudge him the core I spent to bring him to life anymore. It all worked out in the end, and I got a little monkey buddy for my trouble. My mind now turns to the business at hand, namely, continuing to eat this biomass. I've resolved that until all of this croca has been consumed, Tiny and I will live the shut-in lifestyle. We won't leave until the meal is over. I estimate we'll be able to fill ourselves up at least once more, possibly twice, before the food is entirely gone. Come on, Tiny. Time to dig in. Om nom nom. Gah. I'm stuffed. Tiny is looking so full he's practically a monkey basketball. That's another 7 biomass in the tank. Such riches. Since we are so full, the ape and I decide to just sleep again, a well-deserved holiday after our efforts. When we awake, we finish off the food and I gain another 4 biomass. Rest in peace, Titan Croca. I will never forget the mutations you allowed me to gain. Checking my status, I have amassed a ridiculous 18 points of biomass. This is so many points I almost don't know what to do with it. Settle down, Anthony. Let's start planning out the costs now. I need 9 points to max out my antennae, so there goes half of my wealth immediately. Then I have another 9 whole points to spend. I can upgrade my regeneration gland to 4 with my remaining points. I really like the regeneration and have already promised myself to prioritize it. So this will leave me with 2 points remaining. I guess I could spend those on either pheromones or legs. Legs would be useful in general, running around, climbing. These are all things I do constantly. Pheromones will help me with managing the colony and workers. I mean, an extra +1 isn't going to make a huge difference to either choice, so I'm not too concerned. I think I'll take pheromones. The ability to move the workforce faster, even by just a second, could be critical at some point. Not to mention, we are going to need a lot of food to keep growing the colony. The more successfully we can hunt, the better off we all are. Would you like to upgrade antennae to +5, regeneration gland to +4, and pheromones to +2? This will cost 18 biomass. Heck yeah. At this level you can choose a mutation advancement. Please select from the menu. Here we go. Once again the dizzying number of options unfolds in my mind like a flower. There is always such a ridiculous number of suggestions. What on earth am I supposed to pick? Enhanced sense antennae for an empowered sense of smell? Sounds handy. Bladed antennae, equipping each antennae with a bladed tip and turning them into weapons. Holy heck. Precognitive antennae, sensing vibrations from a moment in the future? Are you freaking kidding me? There are a few that tickle my fancy, such as the mana detection antennae, allowing the appendages to sense the flow of mana, but I already have a skill that will hopefully be able to perform the same job. Another choice improves the strength of any magical energy that is channeled through the antennae. I can't help but wonder if the Queen selected this upgrade. Chapter 65 Mutation Trepidation. Gah. The extra options really make my head spin sometimes. As usual, I need to decide exactly what I want my antennae to be for and then choose the advancement that will make them better able to do that job. If I wanted to make myself a purely magic-focused monster, then the antennae magic enhancement would be a very solid choice, letting me build advantages on advantages. However, I'm not the sort of person to go for the specialist option. Perhaps it isn't the smartest path, but I don't want to be bad at any particular aspect and cover that up by being especially strong in another. Perhaps my magic would reach greater heights with an advancement like this, but wouldn't my sensory options be too limited? I just don't feel comfortable moving away from what the antennae were originally designed to do, which is to detect stuff, be it scent or motion. So I'll narrow my options down to those that increase my detection ability. After letting go of some of the juicy but far out there selections, I settle on a few that seem to make the most sense to me. Of those, the one that purely enhances smell is probably the most pedestrian. This option is a little beige even for me. Another choice adds more sensitive hairs to the outside of the antennae, turning them into potent motion sensors. I like this idea, and I also don't being able to detect movement without having to see it is kind of cool, but because I have compound eyes that can see in a huge range around me, there is very little motion I won't see before the antennae pick it up. An option that really piques my interest is one that allows the antennae to develop heat sensitivity. If I'm understanding the description right, the antennae will mutate to include a heat source sensitivity, kind of like having thermal vision but for your nose. I like this idea because it provides a new option that will cover something that was lacking before. I'll be able to detect monsters around corners by the heat they give off, potentially detecting creatures underground or inside nests before they are visible to my eyes. It may even be possible that I could have counted the centipedes inside that centipede mound without ever having to stick my head in it. Infrared antennae. I'll choose this. Well, that's Nixie. I'm on fire. How is it possible that I continue to forget this stupid itch? The antennae are the worst, a horrible burning itch drilling right into my head, but the regeneration and pheromone glands inside me are also terrible. Why, damn it, why? Eventually the nightmare stops and I regain control of myself. Every damn time. Somehow I manage to push the horrible sensation that accompanies every mutation into the back of mind almost immediately after it happens. Is it just that I don't want to remember these terrible experiences? Quite possibly that is the answer. With all of the mutating done, I now have a single skill point to spend. I'm not too sure on this one. I'm building up more and more skills and they will need upgrading eventually. On the other hand, I was able to see so many useful skills that I could purchase and make good use of the last time I was purchasing skills, but ended up investing almost all of my points into magic-related skills. No, I'm determined to spend it. There are several skills that I've been hungry for and I shall resist the urge no longer. Exoskeleton Defense improves the user's ability to utilize their external skeleton to deflect blows and resist damage. I wanted this skill before in order to assist my desire to tank up, but I couldn't afford, choosing to prioritize my magical path at all costs, but now I buy it. Confirm this purchase, Gandalf. Gimme. When it is all said and done, my status now looks like this. Name, Anthony. Level, 8 core. Might, 31. Toughness, 22. Cunning, 25. Will, 18. HP, 50/50. MP, 50/50. Skills: Excavation level 1, Improved Acid Shot level 5, Curp level 4, Crushing Bite level 7, Advanced Stealth level 3, Piercing Chomp level 3, Tunnel Sense level 4, Mana Shaping level 2, Forceful Mana level 2, External Mana Manipulation level 1, Mana Sensing level 1, Core Mechanic level 1, Exoskeleton Defense level 1. Mutations: Focused Eyes +5, Infrared Antennae +5, Restrictive Acid +5, Legs +1, Infused Mandibles +5, Diamond Carapace +5, Regeneration Gland +4, Pheromones +2. Species: Mature Ant Worker, Formica. Skill points: 0. Biomass: 0. I can't help but feel that my foundation is becoming increasingly solid. My goal of upgrading all of my mutations to +5 and stacking as many mutation advancements as possible is slowly coming to fruition. Once I get my regeneration gland to +5, I'll only have 2 more body parts remaining and I'll have reached perfection. Now that I'm level 8, I'm anticipating that I'll probably be able to evolve at level 10, and with my beyond perfect core I'm ready to do that at any time. Everything is coming up, Anthony. Opening up my small chamber, Tiny and I step out of the darkness and once again into the bright light. What a nice break we had. I feel refreshed and newly improved, bursting with vigor and drive. Tiny has also benefited from our time of sleeping and feasting. His growth continues to accelerate. He's probably double the size he was when he was first born. No longer able to ride comfortably on my back, he's going to have to walk and climb as best he can. Keep up, little guy. We don't have all day. The ape monster seems almost a little petulant as he is forced to run alongside me, using his knuckles to propel himself forward much as a gorilla would. Up on the ant hill, the usual workers are in attendance, watching the forest carefully. Several workers are moving in and out of the nest, heading into the forest to follow the trails or scout for food. Hopefully they don't run into too much trouble out there. The forest is absolutely crazy at the moment. Tiny and I advance down into the cool shade of the nest. I notice that the veins of light are continuing to extend themselves down into the tunnel, the thin tendrils at the end moving almost visibly at the very edges. Deep in the nest there is a frenzy of activity, and it isn't hard to see why. Whilst I was sleeping and eating, the queen and workers were busy laying the foundations of the colony's future. Checking into the brood chamber, I can see that the huge number of eggs that were laid after the berserker invasion have hatched into little larvae. The newly hatched monsters fill the brood chamber to the brim. The workers have quickly made use of all the available food we've secured and stuffed the little grubs full. The poor little things have almost gone spherical. Are they grubs or bowling balls? I try to resist the temptation to roll them around. I'm worried they'd roll right out of the chamber and fall down the tunnel. I know we need them to grow quickly, but seriously guys, show a little restraint. The larvae can barely move, so full are they. The workforce is in attendance, however, carefully monitoring each and every grub to ensure they are okay. Judging by the size of their abdomens though, these workers all have fairly full social stomachs. I wager that as soon as a grub shows any sign of digesting its food, the only fate that awaits it is to be packed full once again. Good luck, larvae. Do your best to grow quickly into strong ants. Most of the larvae that were in here before have either spun their cocoons and become pupae, or already completed this phase and graduated into hatchling workers. New brethren for the workforce are always welcome. Exiting the brood chamber, which in all honesty is looking a little full, I head further into the nest and notice a new tunnel cut into the wall on my left. Curiously, Tiny and I wander down the tunnel in order to find out why it has appeared. I was right to think the brood chamber was full. The workers appear to have agreed with me and dug out another one. After the colony absorbed another big chunk of biomass, the queen has once again gone to work. In the dark chamber in front of me there are 10 workers tending to a massive clutch of eggs. There must be 200 or 300 of them here. Well, this is what I was hoping for when I brought the colony into that fight. These eggs and larvae in the chamber above represent an incredible opportunity for the colony. If they can mature and hatch, the workforce will grow from around 200 workers to well over 800. That large workforce will be able to jumpstart the growth of the next generation and then the generation after that. It won't be long until this colony is filled with thousands of ants. Then what could stop us? Chapter 66: The Heat Factor. Any records from the time of rending are unreliable at best and complete fantasy at worst. The Magio scholars from the Tower of Ranulf have spent decades poring over the old documents, attempting to piece together a cohesive picture of the state of the world at that time. Their findings are frequently controversial and often disputed, but I myself tend to believe that the views they have published are reasonable conjectures based on the evidence. The first, generally agreed principle is that the ambient mana level on the surface of Pangera rose greatly, more than doubling immediately before the crises struck. The rapid advancement and reliance on magical techniques exploded in this time, a brief period that the scholars refer to as a golden age. They also postulate that at this time the dungeon was already fully formed underground, something that other scholars hotly dispute. The logic appears to be sound, however. It is known that gargantuan, mighty monsters emerged from beneath the surface shortly after the cataclysm began, and there are no known records of such monsters spawning ever since. If they hadn't been battling and evolving in the dungeon for many years, perhaps even hundreds of years, then where did they come from? Excerpt from The Origins of the Great Beasts, a historical treatise by Oleander. Minus 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 minus. Dreams of the upcoming ant conquest will have to wait for a while though. There is a massive amount of work to be done before then. With Tiny by my side, I paused to consider what my next move should be. I have a few options for my next course of action, and I should consider carefully before I simply run off and engage in something without thinking it through. The war turned out okay for the colony this time, but even so, there are the deaths of tens of workers resting on my head, and it could have been much worse. Even I didn't know that the forceful monoball would be able to one-shot the Titan Croc, and if it hadn't, the entire battlefield may have become a sea of flame, barbecuing dozens more workers. I should carefully consider my options this time to avoid making such errors. I certainly don't want to get belted on the head by the Queen again. The tunnels leading further downwards that connect to the Queen's chamber concern me. The berserkers were able to invade through those tunnels and caused major problems. If I hadn't been able to intervene, the colony would have suffered far worse than it did. I'm a bit scared to go down there though. If tough monsters like the berserkers are running away from down there, I'm not really prepared to go and scout it out by myself. I think after I've successfully evolved, I'll be a little more confident to explore those deeper areas. Hopefully my stats will receive a sizable boost that might enable me to be a bit more survivable against whatever threats lie below. I'll just have to hope that the Queen and the rest of the workforce can fend off any threats from down there long enough for me to reach the required level. The next option is to continue the colony growth plan and start fights, using pheromones to bring the workers into the battle. This strategy revolves around feeding large amounts of experience into the workers to increase the overall strength of the workforce. I'm concerned though. With the area above being so dense with monsters, it will be almost impossible to start an isolated fight in which I can accurately judge the odds in advance. The war was a perfect example of this. If I try to bring the colony to fight something, it is almost certain that more and more monsters will show up, drawn by the noise and the promise of food. This is too risky. I'll have to abandon this option. So what should I do? Do you have any answers, Tiny? The little ape looks up at me, absent-mindedly scratching at his leg. Those large eyes of his are completely vacant, appearing almost devoid of thought. There is trust in those eyes, confidence in my ability to lead him to food, but a stunning lack of original thought. You are trusty companion, Tiny, even if you are dumb as a brick. Let's attack this problem from another viewpoint. What are the roles that workers perform in the colony? Take care of the brood. Not really my style. There are plenty of workers for that. Defend the nest. I'm the best fighter in the colony for sure, but I don't want to just stand around and wait for something to happen. Scout. The scout has the role of ranging far from the nest and locating food, identifying threats and bringing information back to the colony. Surely a cool, powerful and incredibly well-built ant such as myself is perfect for a role like this. I'll be able to proactively protect the colony and support the workers if I find them in trouble. Not to mention I'll have a bit of autonomy in terms of hunting. Rather than starting a massive fight, I can instead pick and choose my hunting targets. To be honest, I also really want to evolve as quickly as possible. My oversized core might not be as agonizing as it was before, but it still hurts. Like a persistent toothache, the pain is constant and is always grating on my mind. I want it to go away. Okay. My mind is made up. Tiny and I will form the advanced scouting team of the colony and venture forth into the open space, brave great danger, explore the unknown and hunt our prey for the good of the colony. Before we leave, I drop down into the Queen's chamber to check things out, and predictably she's sleeping, probably exhausted by her participation in the battle followed by egg laying. Not to worry. Onwards, Tiny. With my ape companion in tow, we climb up the tunnel towards the ant hill and open space above. It takes Tiny much longer to climb now that he can't ride on my back. I don't mind too much. It's nice to see the little freeloader doing some work for a change. During my time in the nest, I've been trying to adjust to my new antennae advancement. It's been more difficult than I thought to understand the information my antennae are passing to me. I mean, if you compare it to my human body, the only way a human detects heat is through their skin. As an ant, I have a carapace, so my capacity to sense temperature has been fairly poor. Now my antennae are acting like little heat sensors, showing me sources of heat in my mind that my eyes can't even detect. For example, I can feel the heat given off by a worker even before I see them. This is particularly disorientating when that worker is around a corner or in a separate chamber. All I need is a bit of time. I'm confident that with a bit more experience, I'll be able to react quickly to the information my new sense is telling me. Eventually, Tiny manages to make his way to the top of the anthill, looking rather tired after the journey. Ha! No more slacking for you, monkey boy. The usual group of workers are milling around the hill on defensive duty, moving this way and that as they eyeball the surrounding terrain for threats. There are a few trails of workers moving into the woods, but I don't join them, instead heading in a different direction. I head to the area the battle against the rabbits and centipedes occurred at, and I move in the direction that the centipedes joined the fight from. The huge number of crawlies that joined in on that fight and how quickly they did it suggests to me that there is a sizable centipede mound somewhere around here. I don't really want to attack the nest itself, but I also want to know if there is a large collection of monsters that close to the colony. Once again, the forest is completely alive with noise, monsters everywhere I turn, battling and hunting each other constantly. My new senses are flooding my mind with information, and it is difficult for me to interpret it all quickly. There are heat sources everywhere. Small monsters up in the trees, packs of them roaming together on the hunt. It takes all my stealth and cunning to navigate my way around with running into a fight I don't want to take. I feel that I'm strong to fight most of the monsters I find, but I can't tell what else might pop out of the woodwork and bop me on the head. Hang on. What's this? I'm detecting something a little odd with my heat detection. Concentrating hard, I crouch and move towards cover. This heat signature feels a little different than the monsters I detected before. It seems to be coming from behind that tree. I'm still a little confused by this heat sense, so I'll play this slow. Creeping forward 1 foot at a time, I try to minimize any noise. Something is telling me I need to be careful right now. I give Tiny a look and try to motion him to stay quiet. The little ape looks at me blankly with his wide eyes, and I quickly give up. Just stay quiet, would you? I'm trying to circle around this tree at a slight distance, working the angle so I can get a peek at what my heat detection is there. As I slowly make my way around, I manage to get a slight view of whatever it is that has caught my attention. I think that's a hand. Is this a human? Chapter 67. These guys are seriously annoying. This is definitely a human here behind this tree. What the heck is this human doing here? I have to admit, a chill strikes my heart when I realize that a human is this close to me. It seems bizarre since I myself was a human not too long ago. In this life, however, humans have been nothing but trouble. Inching around slightly, I can see that this is one of those black-clothed soldiers I'd seen before. They chased me out of the upper cavern, chased me out of the tunnels, and now they show up again. What the heck is your problem, guys? To be honest, if I wasn't such a friendly ant, I'd be starting to take it personally. I don't recall doing anything, except being a monster that would cause them to pursue and hate on me to this extent. My heart grows even colder, entering serious winter territory when I realize just how close we are to the anthill. Have they spotted it yet? I highly doubt that the workers or the queen would be able to stand up to the humans. Having been one myself, it isn't hard for me to imagine the kind of strength that an organized human society would be able to muster in a place like this. I'm sure the system has been studied endlessly, all sorts of skill combos researched, magic systems investigated, and engineering feats accomplished. The colony is still very young. Not many workers have evolved out of the hatchling state yet, not to mention the entire colony population is under 1,000. We are still weak, far too weak to even consider fighting against trained soldiers. For the first time I actually start to consider having to fight against people, my old kind. If this soldier located the nest and went to report back to the rest of them, what would I do? Just let them go? Would I really be able to bring myself to kill them? Even to protect the colony? Gah! I don't know the answer to that. What is with this sudden existential dilemma, Gandalf? I can't just throw away my 17 years as a human so quickly. I may be a proud ant worker now, but that's only for a month or so. In any case, I don't know exactly what this human has seen. It's possible they still have no idea where the nest is. Don't panic, Anthony, we might still be okay. I retreat slightly, doing my best to remain fully concealed. I really don't want to attract any attention to myself right now. Using one of my legs, I grab Tiny and hold him still. Thankfully, he's smart enough not to protest out loud, although he does look at me reproachfully. Damn ape. You want to get killed? Eventually I can make out that a female soldier is crouched behind the tree, surveying the area. She has black leather armor with a few metal plates stitched into it around the shoulders and flanks. Her blonde hair is tied back to ensure it doesn't obstruct her face or view. I can even see her ears. Well enough that I can determine she's not an elf at least. Damn it. You idiot, Anthony. Focus. I can see that this soldier is equipped for combat. A long bow case is strapped to her back and a shortish-looking sword rests in a sheath on her hip. To be honest, this is the best view of a human being I've had since being reborn here in this place. There is a lot I can learn just by checking out the equipment and uniform. Hardly daring to breathe, Tiny and I sit and wait, concealed in the brush to the human's right side. We are so close, probably only 5 or 6 meters away. After 10 minutes or so, the soldier rises from her position and begins to make her way through the forest decisively. After a few moments I lead Tiny and we follow at a distance, being careful to minimize sound. Thankfully there is so much combat going on in the forest these days that it isn't hard to conceal our traces at all. Advanced stealth has reached level 4. Oh. Stealth. My first purchase and most faithful skill. I knew I could rely on you. Even after all my gains, stealth is still such a valuable purchase. I highly doubt I'll ever be able to evolve to the point where I no longer have to fear anything in this place. Is that even possible for an ant? My hope is that the colony can grow strong enough that I can depend on the collective to keep me safe and let me live out my life in this new world as best as I can. That isn't too much to ask for, is it? I was never very ambitious as a human and I don't really see that I should change that now that I'm a monster. After following this soldier through the woods for a while, she eventually meets up with another human dressed much the same as she is. The only real difference I can detect is the weapons. Where she has the bow and sword, this chap appears to be armed with a staff of some kind. Have I seen these two before? I'm getting a vague sense of déjà vu. To be honest, before I was able to advance my eyesight, it was pretty damn hard to make out the fine details. I wouldn't have been able to identify a person from their features before. Perhaps I glimpsed these two as they chased me out of the tunnels. At any rate, they are here now, talking softly to one another. As they talk, they don't even look at each other, instead they constantly eye the surroundings for danger. Looks like they know how to stay alive in here at least. There are monsters absolutely everywhere right now. In fact, my antennae twitch as I pick up a heat signature approaching from my right. Thankfully I've managed to remain hidden and whatever is coming is headed directly at the human duo. This could be interesting. From the woods emerges a strange-looking creature that I'd never seen before. Huge, massively muscled, armed, covered in bristling fur are the first things that strike my eyes. Each of those powerful limbs ends in massive hands, each the size of my head. Black, jagged nails extend from the end of each finger. Atop the monster's broad shoulders rests a massive lion's head, lips drawn back in a dreadful snarl, revealing the long curved fangs within. The king of the jungle? Except with massive arms and hands? What the heck kind of monster is this? The beast's eyes are yellow and they behold the humans with a dreadful glee. You know, in some ways I agree with what you are thinking, massive lion beast. You charge in here, you see these thin, small and weak-looking things in front of you. What sort of self-respecting monster would think they are any type of threat? If you're a dumb monster who was probably born yesterday, what would you know of the power of the human mind? Its ingenuity and endless capacity to invent ways to kill things. You see these things and they look like free biomass, so of course you try and eat them. The lion monster roars hungrily and pounces, ready to strike. The female soldier frowns and then, so quickly I almost can't even see it, whips her blade from its sheath and braces it in two hands before plunging it forward like lightning. That was so fast, if I was physically capable of blinking I might have missed it. The strike plunges into the lion's shoulder, biting deep, and the monster growls viciously as its blood begins to flow. The attack thwarted, the lion steps back to prepare another swing, massive hands more like battering rams as it punches out directly. Before this punch can even connect, the male soldier has raised his staff. From the tip emerges a blazing spear of flame that streaks through the air and impales the lion directly between the eyes, killing it instantly. Yep. I thought so. The two humans move toward the corpse in a businesslike manner, the female soldier bracing a foot against the body to pull her sword out and then carving into the monster's chest whilst the male stands guard with his staff raised. Eventually the digging is rewarded with a core pulled out of the monster's gory chest and the two quickly move on, not hanging around in case more monsters are attracted by the smell. Well, don't mind if I do. Tiny is already salivating next to me, and by the time the humans have moved 10 meters away we have already crept over to take a bite. You have consumed a new source of biomass, Leo Ogre. You are awarded 1 biomass. Basic profile of the Leo Ogre unlocked. Leo Ogre, Lion Ogre. This monster is most feared for its massive strength. 2 overdeveloped arms allow it to cause incredible damage with fists alone. Some lion ogres are known to grip crude weapons, such as rocks or branches. They are, however, quite dim. A lion ogre, eh? Okay. Fine. I'm not even surprised. Tiny and I spend 5 minutes feasting, gaining 2 biomass before we dash off in the direction the humans went, following the trail. Chapter 68, Drawing a Line. It doesn't take long for us to catch up, since the 2 soldiers are moving cautiously, attempting to avoid the notice of the thronging monsters in the forest. Every now and again I notice one of them looking up, doubtless keeping an eye out for the gargoyle monsters that nest in the roof. I haven't seen any sign of those things for a while now, but I don't doubt they are still up there somewhere. Fingers crossed that when they do show up they decide to swoop down on someone else. The 2 soldiers move with practiced ease through the area, avoiding pitfalls and reading the signs of monsters being nearby. I'm honestly impressed by their level of knowledge. They seem to know exactly where every monster nearby is without having to actually lay eyes on it. I'm desperately hoping that doesn't include me. Or Tiny. The way they move seems to indicate they know exactly where they are in the open space and exactly where it is they want to go. I wonder how they are doing that. Do they recognize the features of the ceiling? Are they able to track their locations based on familiar features of the rock up there? That makes so much damn sense. I'm shocked I never thought of it before. After the thought occurs to me I start to glance up at the ceiling, using my advanced eyesight to pick out obvious features to try and recall later. After an hour of travel we arrive at what appears to have been the destination the soldiers were heading for. A large hill rises from the forest floor and in one side a tunnel has been cut, leading down into the hill and downward. At the entrance to the tunnel 2 more soldiers are standing guard, attempting to appear inconspicuous, not wanting to draw too much monstrous attention. The 2 I'd followed salute at the entrance, hands over hearts of some such, and then enter the tunnel, their dark uniforms quickly blending into the shadows as they move out of sight. Damn it. If only I had mind reading, or telepathy or something. How am I supposed to glean information from these people? They must know so much that I couldn't possibly find out on my own. A veritable gold mine of information is sitting right here in front of me and I cannot access it in any way. Gah! This is maddening. I decide to stay and watch this apparent human camp for a while. I can't think of anything more threatening to the colony than an attack by these damnable soldiers, so in my capacity as a scout it is my duty to observe them until I am satisfied that they pose no threat. 2 hours later, my dedication to the cause has faded somewhat. The 2 guards out the front were rotated, replaced by 2 almost identical guards. The new guards were not the 2 I'd followed to this location, so at least I learned that there are at a minimum 6 people within this camp. Tiny is growing completely bored and is having a nap behind me. Thankfully there is enough background noise to wash out his gentle snoring. I spend my time observing the humans and seeing what I can learn from them by picking up on the details. Their boots are fairly distinctive, made of stiff-looking leather and dyed black. The boots are laced from the heel to halfway to the knee. The breastplate appears to be made of some kind of stiff leather, once again dyed black and stitched with some sort of gold embroidery. I think there is an insignia on the armor, but I can't quite make it out. The arms borne by each soldier appear to be slightly different. When I'd arrived, the first 2 guards had both worn a long sword on their hip and had a large shield across their back. The 2 who replaced them, however, were different. One had 2 shorts strapped across the back in an X. The second uncased a crossbow from their back when they came out, slotted a bolt and cranked back on the shaft before taking up his post. Seems like a bit of an odd army. Almost every individual is armed with a different weapon. After some thinking I decide that the light armor they wear makes a lot of sense. At first I'd expected that they'd be loaded up with massive plate armor like a medieval knight, but when considering the size of some of the monsters down here, how strong some of them are and how sharp some of their limbs can be, what the heck would a suite of metal armor do? Absolutely squat. I could probably punch straight through metal armor using a piercing bite. Other than slowing down the person wearing it, I can't imagine that armor will achieve much at all. Eventually 2 more soldiers return from the forest, joining up with their fellows and entering the tunnel. Shortly after the whole crew emerges, or at least I imagine it's the whole crew, 10 soldiers wearing that same identical armor. They talk to others softly, but I can't understand a single word of it. I'm able to hear it well enough that I'm confident they aren't speaking any language I've ever heard before. Fantastic. This makes the dream of communication ever more distant. Not only can I not vocalize, I can't even understand the language. Several of the soldiers appear to be carrying heavy packs. It seems they are moving out of this hill and heading to another campsite. It isn't long before the soldiers group up and start to move. I hesitate. The direction they are traveling is still directly away from the colony. I'm already an hour's travel away from my home nest. Do I really want to travel any further than this? Not to mention, following along after these humans is still exceptionally dangerous. There are 10 of them now. I assume they could annihilate Tiny and myself in a heartbeat were we to be found. Best to play it safe. I've learned a fair bit of information already. I know where their forward camp is. I know that they are here and I've managed to witness some of their skills in action. That's not insignificant. I consider trying to head into the tunnel and investigate their little base, but in the end I reluctantly dismiss the idea. There is way too much risk involved. These people look like professional soldiers, not ragtag mercenaries like the last camp I invaded. Also, I wasn't able to witness the defenses being set up like I did before. There could be any number of traps inside that cave and I would have no idea. I'll back off. After the humans have departed, I start to journey back towards the colony with Tiny. Keeping my eyes on the roof of the cavern, I try to follow a few of the landmarks that I remember from my way here, and despite getting muddled a few times, I manage to get back to the general area. I need to be extra careful when I'm out scouting now that I know there are human soldiers moving through the cavern. I honestly had thought I was free of those killers. The way they move through the tunnels, exterminating every monster they found without mercy, still sends a shiver down my spine. Only one thing can be done in order to be safer: become stronger and evolve. If I can evolve and then help grow the colony even further, hopefully we'll be able to live free of human interference. For now my priority is to hunt and get levels. Just 2 more levels is all I need. One tiny and I have made it back in the general vicinity of the nest. I climb up a tree and start trying to scout out possible prey. The forest is completely packed with monsters, so any target needs to be chosen carefully. I get more experience from taking on evolved monsters, but some of those are a lot stronger than others. I'd rather fight 3 evolved centipedes at once than have a titan croc get the jump on me. So I have to be careful and choose my prey wisely. My core still throbs painfully inside my body. Hopefully it won't be long before I can release all the potential held inside there. I wonder what I'll become. Chapter 69: The Evolving Situation. The legionary camp is a hive of activity. Patrols come and go in a steady stream under the watchful eye of the officers. The monster suppression has been difficult on this expedition. Preparations for the wave are not going as smoothly as the brass had expected. Tribune Aurelia was concerned. Her experience and expectations were continually being defied. The situation at hand refused to conform to historical norms. Everyday squads left the outpost and moved into the expanse, exterminating monsters and hunting down spawn locations. Whenever a spawn point was found, the legionaries would trap it, killing the monsters the moment they were formed from the dungeon. This was the typical procedure employed by the Legion when preparing for a wave. The goal was to reduce the number of monsters before the wave broke as much as possible. Trapping the spawn points in normal times would drive mercenaries and dungeon explorers insane, effectively reducing their ability to earn income, but the Legion took no chances when it came to a wave. Every monster they could reliably kill they would. Something was different this time. For every spawn point they were able to identify and neutralize, another 4 would pop up the next day. Despite marshalling more resources and bringing reinforcements down from the surface, they were simply unable to kill monsters quickly enough to meaningfully thin them out. Even the commander had acted, entering the forest expanse on his own and emerging several hours later covered in gore with a small bag full of cores on his belt. Aurelia chuckled at the memory. Several trainees had asked who was going to accompany the commander as he was preparing to leave. The senior legionaries had just looked at them as if they were insane. If anyone could keep up with him, they would be welcome to go. Emerging from the woods came the 10-person strong trainee unit, returning from their scouting assignment. Aurelia knew they'd be sent to do reconnaissance on the far side of the expanse. Locating the ant nest remained a priority of this expedition, despite the unusual circumstances propagating each day. The weary soldiers marched single file through the gate, shoulders slumped under heavy backpacks, eyes red from little sleep. Their uniform leather were scuffed and stained in several places, indicators of battle and combat. The Tribune approached the squad. When they saw her coming, they stopped and snapped out salutes, their discipline bringing a smile to the weathered features of their officer. "What do you have to report?" Aurelia said. Trainee Mirren had been appointed the leader of this particular squad. She stepped forward to give her report. The trainees were especially nervous around their superiors on this expedition. The Centurions, Tribune and even the commander himself found every opportunity to find fault with them. Uniform dirty? Go run laps. Poor form when saluting? 2 hours in the training yard. Make a mistake in the training yard? Stay in the damn training yard and work until you pass out. All of their nerves had been frayed right to the edge. It was almost a relief when they'd been sent out as a squad to scout the far side of the expanse. Fighting their way through hordes of monsters and watching their backs every waking moment for several days almost seemed easier than staying with their officers. Mirren cleared her throat and reported. The squad was able to reach our designated coordinates approximately 30 hours ago. We identified 4 spawn points in the surrounds and were able to effectively seal them all. A list of monsters identified and defeated has been compiled for your inspection, Tribune. Having said this, Mirren drew a scroll case from her waist bag and presented it to Aurelia, saluting once more as she did so. The Tribune raised an eyebrow as she accepted the case. Clearly the trainees were starting to realize just how exacting the standards would be for them on this delve. Aurelia opened the case and unrolled the parchment within, casting her eyes quickly over the lists and numbers, her experience allowing her to absorb the information in a moment. "And what of our quarry? Were you able to locate any ants?" she asked as she stowed the parchment in its case once more. The paper would go to the administration auxiliaries, the bean counters who tallied all of this information for reporting to the Legion brass and the Lyrian government. The faces of the squad member immediately twisted upon hearing the Tribune's words. They had failed to find the ants despite all of their searching. What concerned them most was the punishment that awaited them if the Tribune decided to view this as another failure on their part. Mirren cleared her throat before speaking. We were unable to locate any sign of ants or the nest itself, Tribune. The increased monster activity has made solo scouting extremely difficult, dramatically reducing our scouting range and efficiency. She paused before continuing. It is still possible that the ants are operating in the area we were sent to search, but we failed to locate them. I recommend a team be sent to scout the area again more thoroughly. Before she was halfway through her reply, the faces of her squad members had gone pale. Their minds were spinning with the possible penalties that would be heaped on their heads for not only failing but admitting they'd found it too difficult and recommending another squad go fix their mistakes. Not that they disagreed with what Myron had said, they just hoped it could have been phrased a little more gently. Contrary to their imaginations, the Tribune simply nodded. Trainee Mirren, you may dismiss your squad to recuperate and then remain here. I'd like a word. Somewhat dazed, Mirren turned to the other members and dismissed them. The squad shared relieved smiles as they made their way to the tents reserved for resting. There wasn't much recreation of comfort afforded to a legionary in the dungeon, but at the very least a hot meal, a cold wash and a good sleep were assured. Watching the others clap each other on the back as they walked away, Mirren couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive towards her officer. Tribune Aurelia had the reputation of a demon in normal times. In the dungeon she had proven to be 5 times as strict. The older woman didn't speak immediately, gesturing for the younger trainee to walk beside her as she turned and wandered deeper into the camp. As they walked, they passed the workshop area of the camp. Here, diligent Legion craftsmen and women worked to process raw materials harvested from monsters. There was little priority given to collecting resources on this expedition. Killing the monsters was far more important than harvesting, but if a legionary brought down prey close to the camp, then it would be wasteful to let the dungeon reclaim it all. Hides were boiled and treated, bones shaved, powdered or heated depending on their properties. The Deep Legion seldom sold anything they collected in the dungeon, preferring to give their own craftspeople the opportunity to create weapons and armor in-house. Any excess would be stockpiled or transported to a Legion branch in another city, sometimes another country. The Tribune exchanged a few greetings with the hard-working auxiliaries. These men and women would never be full legionaries, but they were deeply valued nonetheless. As they continued to walk, Aurelia eventually began to speak. Your squad won't be going back out to scout tomorrow. She raised her hands to cut off Mirren when she saw the other was about to speak. No, not because of any failure on your part. The commander and I have determined that it is becoming too dangerous in the expanse to send out small squads anymore. You'll be concentrating on clearing monsters closer to the camp. The younger woman frowned. With respect, Tribune, we don't need to be coddled. Aurelia barked out a laugh and turned to the trainee. Do you feel as though you are being coddled down here? Whatever was the opposite of coddling was Mirren's opinion of what they had experienced. No, she said. The Tribune nodded. Things aren't normal. We've had a report from the headquarters that conditions deeper in the dungeon are even worse than what we are experiencing here. We've ordered every available legionary from the Lyria to report here to support the wave defense. Mirren was confused. Tribune, how would the headquarters on the surface know more about conditions in the dungeon than we would? We are in the dungeon. Aurelia eyed the younger woman for a brief moment. Long years of experience, pain, loss and triumph moved behind those eyes. Do you really think that the Deep Legion has its headquarters on the surface? Mirren could hardly process what that meant. The Lyria headquarters was inside the dungeon somewhere? Why would you tell me this now? She eventually asked. It is time for you trainees to learn a few more things. After all, at the conclusion of this expedition you will either be a full legionary, partial to all of our secrets, or you will be dead. Chapter 70 Using the Power of the Mind. To hunt under these conditions one needs to be cunning. After all, what was it that allowed humanity to rise above their competitors to be the dominant species of Earth? It was their minds. Their ingenuity. Combined with a tendency to avoid considering the consequences of any particular course of action, this trait, more than any other, propelled humanity to great heights. So when I am faced with this environment, in which an ant must truly struggle to hunt, to provide for his family with the necessary sustenance to survive, what could I possibly do? Regular hunting is impossible. It seems that more and more monsters are appearing at any given moment. Successfully battling a monster 1 versus 1 and then being able to consume or transport the biomass without attracting attention would be rather difficult. So then, time to use the OL noodle to solve this problem. Draw on a little bit of that divine spark of intelligence that my previous life has gifted me. What have I come up with? Pitfall traps. I shall utilize traps, thus combining my two identities in one, the cleverness of a human and the capacity to dig a hole of an ant. I know, all right. Sure, it's not that clever, but it is the best I could come up with. At a reasonable distance away from the nest, a few hundred meters, I've begun construction of a large pitfall trap. The construction has been more difficult than I initially expected. Whilst there is plenty of dirt, as I dig further down I inevitably find bits of rock. Fortunately, the mana-infused mandibles prove up to the task and I'm able to break it up after expending a fair bit of effort. The excavation skill has once again proven its worth and I've already gained a level in it due to my efforts. It's interesting to notice how the excavation skill actually functions. Rather than creating a magical shovel of light that emerges from my face to help me dig, which would be awesome. Instead, I almost feel as if my instincts are being guided by a knowledgeable digging master. When I was trying to find a location for my pitfall traps, certain areas were more appealing to me as suitable to dig and others I felt should be avoided. I honestly don't know how I knew that, I just did. When I'm digging as only an ant can, using the mandibles on my face not only as a shovel but also as a barrow, my instincts whisper to me, don't dig that spot yet, the soil will crumble, tilt your head to this angle, the result will be better. The overall effect is that mistakes are minimized and efficiency is increased, resulting in a larger area dug in less time. I can only imagine that if the excavation skill becomes maxed out, then I'll become some sort of digging god, never making an error and working so fast that vast underground tunnels will be carved out in a single day. As it stands, it takes several hours of hard work before I've been able to dig a large and deep pitfall that I think will be sufficient to hold most monsters, about 2 meters in diameter and 5 meters deep. I've been an industrious little ant. At the bottom of the pitfall I've dug a small tunnel that runs several meters parallel the forest floor. My intention is that within this small offshoot tunnel I'll have a private space to hide and consume prey. Several times during the construction I was forced to abandon the site and hide in a tree when I detected monsters coming. Given the crazed attitude of all the creatures in the forest lately, I knew that would battle do the death the moment they laid eyes on me. I'm so irresistible. And the resulting kerfuffle would draw in more monsters, and my entire trap plan would go to waste. The hunter must display patience for best results. Tiny spent the entire time up in the tree. I didn't really trust him to dig, and I certainly didn't trust him not to fight when anything showed up. Honestly, he slept most of the time, which probably worked out for the best. After covering the pitfall with a light layer of vegetation as a disguise, there is nothing to do but await the juicy prey that will fall directly into my greedy mandibles. Muahaha. However, after a while I still haven't caught anything. Plenty of monsters are moving through this area, but they've been lucky enough not to step on my trap. Damn monsters, why is all of this good fortune being wasted on you? I rack my brains. What could I do to increase the efficacy of the trap? Bait. I could bait the trap, which would help draw the monsters directly to the pitfall. What could I use as bait? Tiny coughs abruptly in his sleep, sharply interrupting his gentle snoring and drawing my sharp gaze to his resting form. Bait. I won't. Too much could go wrong if we're to use Tiny as bait. I refuse to let him die until he's paid me back in full for the core I lost on him. Although it would be nice to dangle this sleeping loafer from a branch. I can only be patient and wait for a monster to fall into the trap. Once I have one catch, I can save some of the biomass to use as bait. This idle time cannot be wasted, however. The spirit of the worker pulses within me, demanding that my time be used productively for the colony. I range a little distance away from my trap and survey the terrain for a space that will suit my needs. Eventually I find an appealing patch of earth 30 meters away from my pitfall. If one trap should prove insufficient, then more must be constructed. Don't underestimate the enthusiasm for digging that runs through my ant body. Much like the first time I dug the trap, a huge part of the effort is spreading the dirt around in a way that looks reasonably natural. Creating an enormous mound of dirt directly next to your hole in the ground is not necessarily the greatest way to lure prey, I decided. One's pitfall trap does not require advertising. After 30 minutes of digging, I'm startled out of my reverie by a crashing sound followed by an indignant screech. What? I'm so shocked I was frozen there for a moment. I swear when I get to digging it's almost as if I fall into a trance. For some reason it just feels so nice to dig as an ant. As if I'm fulfilling my life calling. Truly, my reason for being as a worker is to dig. Scuttling over to my original pitfall, I can immediately detect that some unfortunate monster has fallen prey to my rather crude and ungraceful trap. Collecting itself from the wreckage at the bottom of the pit is a rather furious-looking blade-tailed mouse. Pow! You'll be even more irritated after becoming acquainted with my restrictive acid. After blasting the mouse with a solid dose, I climb down into the trap and finish it quickly. You have gained experience. Excellent. The pitfall trap has borne fruit. Not much fruit to be sure, a small, limp sort of fruit, perhaps a grape. But fruit nonetheless. After some consideration I decide not to consume this mouse. When I see Tiny going for it I have to slap him on the head before he can get his hunger under control. If we can be patient now, then by giving up this little bit of biomass we will reap greater rewards later. I pick up the body and carry it out of the hole before resetting the brush over the trap. Once this is done I ever so carefully place the remains of the mouse in the center of the brush, stepping as lightly as a dancer so as not to fall into my own trap. The fact I was able to catch anything at all is something of a relief. I was seriously concerned that all of this digging would achieve nothing except to help on the path of ant zen. Hopefully now with a proper lure in place the trap will be able to perform better and bring something a little more tangible for Tiny and I to feast on. With the original pitfall once again running at full capacity, I put Tiny back into his tree and move over to the second construction site, at all times using my heat sensitivity and eyesight to ensure I avoid having any monsters come across me as I work. Once again to perform my true calling. And dig. Chapter 71 Too effective. The second trap is almost halfway done when I hear another crashing thud, followed by a furious roar. Once again a visitor has decided to grace my humble hotel. Welcome, dear guest. Manuel, take their bags. Chortling to myself I crawl out of my second pitfall and rush to the first. Tiny is standing up in his tree abode, excitedly staring down at the hapless monster caught in the pit. The little ape is practically drooling, he's become so hungry. I get that you're hungry, little guy, but really, try to maintain a little dignity. As much as I try to ignore it, my stomach is also growling. After all of this work digging I've worked up quite the appetite. Approaching the side of my trap I peer down to see exactly what monster I've managed to reel in this time. Greeting me from the bottom of the pit is a particularly furious-looking giant centipede. The centipede very quickly begins to right itself after falling into the pit, a mess of sticks and foliage tangling in its legs. This guy again, huh? Where once upon a time I felt hugely threatened by the massive centipedes, I just can't muster the same kind of fear for them anymore. They might be much larger than the original claw centipedes, but they remain fairly stupid with limited ways to attack. In fact, due to its increased size and reduced mobility, the most threatening weapon of the claw centipede, its poison spike, is rendered almost completely useless against me. Pow! I dispense justice in the form of acid from my business zone down onto my prey before leaping directly into the pit to do battle. There were several reasons why I thought pitfalls would be a safer way to hunt in the current forest, one of which was the ability to isolate the battle somewhere the sound and scent of the battle would be somewhat muted. Combined with the natural advantage of battling against a monster after it has fallen and become entangled, this method seemed promising to my mind. So far it has proven to be effective. I'll be very interested to see if I can finish this battle quickly enough without drawing any further monsters from the surrounds. Just as the centipede is able to right itself, my acid rains down, once again entangling legs that had only moments ago become free. Hissing furiously, the centipede writhes and twists in knots as the pain and discomfort mounts. At this time I land directly onto the carapace of my prey, gripping tightly with my claws, pushing my grip skill to the limit. Take this, you lively bugger. Piercing chomp. Crunch. My mandibles pierce into the carapace like a hot knife into a refrigerated spread of some kind, savaging the internals of the centipede. The monster shrieks in agony and attempts to use its body to slam me into the wall of the pitfall. Slam. Ouch. Damn centipede, receive my bite of truth. Crunch. My diamond carapace absorbed almost all of the impact, so I received very little actual damage from that desperate maneuver. What I am concerned about is the noise attracting more monsters to the scene. So I quickly retaliate with another bite. This time, having already punctured the enemy's defenses, I utilize the crushing bite to inflict maximum damage, my mandibles ripping deep into muscle and organs of the centipede. After this bite, the centipede has lost most of its fight, unable to properly move the latter half of its body. There is little it can do to avoid fatal damage. You have slain level 6 adult claw centipede. You have gained experience. Nice. Quick as a flash I move to secure the biomass, dragging it into my prepared side tunnel and out of sight. Then I crawl out of the pitfall to reset the majority of my screen, covering the hole in the ground except for one small section. I'm hoping that this will prevent the smell from escaping too much and also make my hiding place a little harder to find. Claws crossed, it works out. Having taken these measures, I retreat back into the trap, bringing Tiny down with me so we can finally sate our hunger. Down in the dark tunnel, the offshoots the pitfall, we greedily chow down on the centipede, Tiny in particular showing his vastly increased appetite after going hungry for too long. Yes. Eat, my young ape, eat and grow strong. You'll pay me back in labor eventually, I'll work you like a slave. An adorable chimp slave. After completing our meal, I've gained 2 biomass, which brings my current total to 4. Just one more and I'll be able to upgrade yet another body part to +5. I'm quite excited to see what sort of upgrades I'll be able to choose from for the regeneration gland. I think of Tiny at this moment. This little guy must have eaten something like 15. Maybe even 20 points of biomass since I reconstructed him. Where has all of those points gone? The little ape notices me staring at him and stops wiping his bat face with the back of his arm, staring back at me curiously. I can't detect any change to his fur or hands. His eyes look the same, no noticeable difference in his arms or legs. Has the biomass been spent, or is it all being saved up? Maybe he can't spend it until he matured to a certain point. He certainly couldn't be called anything like fully grown at this stage. Well, not much I can do about it at this point. I'll just have to keep feeding him and see what happens. We were undisturbed during our meal, something for which I am extremely grateful. I wasn't able to recover the mouse bait. I think the centipede dove on it and ripped it to shreds as it fell. So I finish resetting the first trap after making sure Tiny was securely positioned in his tree. It will probably take longer to get another sucker to slip into my pitfall, so I'll get back to work on the second one. Could we have saved some of the centipede to use as bait? Yes we could. Did we do that? No. We were pretty hungry though. A few hours later, I've managed to finish off the second trap despite a few interruptions. I had a gang of unevolved centipedes go through the area, a croca beast and the elusive dog snake, which I'd only seen dead before. Sadly, none of these monsters fell into my clutches, so I simply hid myself away as they passed through, emerging once they'd passed me by and continuing my work happily. I've also managed to achieve yet another level in excavation. It feels pleasant to gain levels without having to risk my own life for a change. Once the second pitfall was completed, I didn't immediately cover it but instead added another off-shooting tunnel. While I was at it, I decided to join the 2 tunnels together. I mean, why not? This necessitated a lot more digging and effort, particularly when I ran into a rather stubborn block of stone which required me to use my infused mandibles to cut through. Eventually, however, the 2 traps were joined at the bottom of the pitfalls by a somewhat winding tunnel roughly 30 meters long. Holy heck, that took ages. Now I'm bloody starving again. Crash. Roar. What the dickens? Another customer. I rush down my narrow tunnel to the original trap and I see a furious croca beast thrashing and twisting its way out of the vines and branches I used to secure the cover over the pitfall. Success! Another visitor to the Pitfall Hotel. You can check in, Mr. Crocodile, but you can never leave. Exploding out of the tunnel, I utilize all of my speed to harness the element of surprise. A huge part of my trap strategy is to finish every battle as quickly as possible to avoid unnecessary noise. Thankfully, the monster hasn't had any time to survey its surroundings and hasn't even noticed the small tunnel dug into the base of the pit. The last thing this croca beast expected to see was a worker ant rushing at it, mandibles shining with infused mana ready to bite. Crushing bite. Snap. Closing my mandibles with ferocious force, the mighty croc wails in distress as its leg is directly shorn through. Your scales may as well be paper mache in the face of the mana-infused mandibles. With one leg directly severed, the croca beast falls to the ground once again, the narrow confines of the pit making it extremely difficult for the monster to orient itself. For me, however, this terrain is perfect. After my initial strike, I sprint past the croc and straight up the wall of the pit, trying to gain the high ground. It's over now, croc. I fire down a blast of acid at the creature, who by this time is surely wondering what it did wrong in a previous life to deserve this kind of treatment. Just an innocent croc monster out for a walk in the forest, and now this, down a leg and covered in acid at the bottom of a pit. Not to worry, monster, these circumstances won't be troubling you for long. I fire down a second blast of acid, treating the beast to another helping of the restricting property. Unable to stand, covered in acid and completely furious, the croc has no choice but to succumb to my finishing bite. You have defeated level 3 infant Garalosh. You have gained experience. Standing over the defeated croc, I really can't help but think to myself, isn't this working super well? Chapter 72, Finer Things in Life. This time I managed to restrain Tiny and myself for long enough to save some bait for both of the traps. Due to having to feed the stupid ape and reserve some of the food, I only take a single biomass for myself since it's enough for my needs. With 5 points of biomass now, I am ready to once again select a mutation advancement. I cannot wait until I can look at my status and see every available body part has been upgraded to +5. What completeness, what symmetry, such a perfect being I shall become. No, I'm not a neat freak. I think. After resetting my original trap and baiting my second, I retreat to the underground tunnel with Tiny in order to select my mutation. Would you like to improve regeneration gland to +5? This will cost 5 biomass. Oh yeah. At this level you may choose a mutation advancement. Select from the menu. Once more the list in my mind unfurls like a banner. A long menu of delectable choices laid before me, ready to peruse. The thing that kills me the most every single time I do this is I can only choose one. Okay. Calm down and let's have a look. Ooh, I can upgrade the number of HP that gets regenerated, upgrade the speed of the regeneration, make it refill faster so I can use it more often. Excess regeneration fluid can be converted into MP, holy moly. Slower working regeneration fluid for a greater boost over time. Rapid response regeneration fluid stored in smaller pockets around my body that automatically heal wounds when they happen. I could pick any of them and be happy. Once again I must use my laser-like focus to hone in on exactly what it is that I want my regeneration gland to do. Which is quite a simple thing to do really. I can clearly recall my thoughts when I chose this body part to begin with. This is my get out of jail free card. I chose it to help me out of a jam when nothing else was working, to help me sustain in the battle after I have received significant damage. This means I don't need it to heal more HP over a longer time. I don't need it to heal smaller wounds instantly. I need a big burst of healing in a short time. I need it to overcome a critical hurdle and put me back in the fight quickly. When the berserkers attacked the colony, I was out of action due to missing legs. The memory of having to scrabble about, unable to use my mighty weapons due to lost limbs, is so painful. The regeneration was able to heal back some HP and kickstart the leg growth process, but it was ultimately the queen's healing prowess that put my six-legged self back into the insect kingdom. The upgrade I really want is this one. Limb regeneration gland. Rather than increasing the HP that is restored, this upgrade greatly enhances the regeneration gland's capacity to restore missing or damaged limbs in a timely manner. This is going to help out a lot. It isn't as if the regeneration gland won't restore HP at all, but it will be able to restore missing body parts much faster than before. Come to think of it, I've had legs chopped off and antennae cut off. Since when did I get so used to having parts of body removed and then grown back? Spending time in this world is really starting to twist my perspective. Well, it isn't as if I need to keep my human way of thinking. I'm not even a human anymore. It's only natural that a few aspects of my mindset would change. Here in this world, for example, I have to directly kill in order to eat, whereas I, like most humans, would never have had to slaughter my own food when I was on Earth. I'm not sure if this makes me more respectful of life or less. On the one hand, I have to kill a lot of monsters in order to survive. On the other, at least I'm not lying to myself about the lives that are sacrificed to sustain my own. Something to think about another time. Now it is time to mutate. Confirm my selection. Oh right, the itch. Fludge. When the itch fades, I am gasping on the floor of my narrow tunnel whilst Tiny watches with a faint tinge of amusement in those vacant ape eyes. Yuck it up, monkey breath. You'll get your chance to mutate and then just watch as I point and laugh at you when you writhe on the floor. With my regeneration gland mutated, my status has now come to look like this. Name, Anthony. Level, 8 core. Might, 31. Toughness, 22. Cunning, 25. Will, 18. HP, 50/50. MP, 50/50. Skills: Excavation level 3, Improved Acid Shot level 5, Grip level 4, Crushing Bite level 7, Advanced Stealth level 4, Piercing Chomp level 3, Tunnel Sense level 4, Mana Shaping level 2, Forceful Mana level 2, External Mana Manipulation level 1, Mana Sensing level 1, Core Mechanic level 1, Exoskeleton Defense level 1. Mutations: Focused Eyes +5, Infrared Antennae +5, Restrictive Acid +5, Legs +1, Infused Mandibles +5, Diamond Carapace +5, Limb Regeneration Gland +5, Pheromones +2. Species: Mature Ant Worker, Formica. Skill points, 0. Biomass, 0. Yes. Only legs and pheromones to go before I have achieved the perfect all-round status of mutations. In total, I'm going to need another 26 biomass in order to max out everything. Come on, Gandalf, 26. It's so many. Mutations are so damn expensive. If we assume that I get another mutation advancement at +10, which may not even be the case, it will take 40 biomass to take a single body part from +5 to +10. If I don't get the advancement until +15, then it will take 105 biomass for a single mutation advancement. Ugh. Hopefully when I get stronger I'll be able to hunt prey that will provide more biomass. It'll take me 100 years to upgrade everything if I have to keep feasting on unevolved monsters. Crash. Speaking of which, another customer. Welcome to the business district. Turns out a lion ogre has tripped into the second pitfall, lured by the faint scent of biomass that lingered in the air due to my bait. I've been trying to use only the right amount of bait in my traps, not too much to bring in monsters from far away, but not too little that it's impossible for the monsters to detect it. Thankfully the balance seems to be about right. I treat the lion ogre as a pretty serious opponent since they look like they can do some serious damage with their grotesquely over-muscled upper bodies. After dosing the creature with a few shots of acid and launching a surprise chomp, the monster doesn't get much chance to fight back before falling to my sneaky assault. You have slain level 7 lion ogre. You have gained experience. You have reached level 9. Oh ho. Thank you Gandalf for your blessing. So close to level 10 and evolution. Arg, I can hardly wait. I'm so excited I'm basically dancing on the spot. Whoops. Better stow away this food before anything happens. Cover over the top of the pitfall, drag the prey into the tunnel. The lion ogre is so large at the shoulder I actually have to break it up in order to fit it all through. Tiny has woken up once again, ready to eat. I've noticed you always sleep when the work is happening but always wake up when it's time to eat, Tiny? Despite my grumbling, I don't begrudge my little ape his meal. Grow up nice and strong, Tiny. In fact, I don't take much biomass for myself, just 2 points. The rest I use to rebait my trap and then let Tiny eat the rest until he's about ready to burst. Every time this little chimp eats and then sleeps he wakes up discernibly larger. I want to pack this little guy full of biomass until it starts running out of his nose and then let him sleep to see if I can accelerate his growth. For some reason I just feel that he needs to be in fighting shape as quickly as possible. Perhaps I'm just finally get sick of his slacking. Predictably, after packing the food into his face until he can barely move, Tiny rolls himself away to a comfortable spot in the tunnel and then falls asleep. He didn't quite finish the entire monster himself, but he came rather astonishingly close considering the relative sizes. Has he upgraded his stomach to include a pocket dimension or something? With my own successful level up and mutation, as well as the prospective growth of my little ape friend, I'm certainly very hopeful for the possibilities tomorrow may bring. Chapter 73: Establishing the Network. Exploration of the dungeon has been the task of all the civilized races who make their homes above the ground ever since the first opening was made known to us. However, a unified approach and the free sharing of information has proven impossible to facilitate. Each kingdom, church, organization or private army or noble house that has devoted resources into plumbing the depths and secrets beneath our feet has withheld their own slice of information from the common perception, hoarding slivers of information like family treasures. There is much information that has been publicly confirmed, however, enough that all citizens have a reasonable awareness of the world below, the dangers and opportunities that can be found there. Some of the key information regards the various strata, the levels, defined by both their depth and the concentration of mana found there. The first strata is generally accepted to lie from the surface to 5 kilometers deep. It is frequently referred to as the strata of beasts, since most of the monsters found there are exaggerated, terrible hybrids of creatures that have long existed on the surface. As for the lower strata, the second and below, information is much harder to corroborate. From the knowledge of the people, a series of essays by the Magio scholar Tarius. I managed to pass a fairly profitable day in this manner. During the quiet moments I managed to construct a third pitfall trap and added my expanding network, excavating another tunnel to connect it all together and gaining another level of excavate as my reward. My fairly crude traps have proven surprisingly capable, netting a consistent flow of prey that I have been able to finish off quickly and conceal within my tunnels, feeding the majority of the biomass to Tiny and taking a little for myself. Over the last day I managed to take 4 biomass for myself, which I've stockpiled for the time being. I could take 2 upgrades to pheromones immediately, but I don't particularly see the need. It isn't as if I'm cooperating with the colony at the moment, so the pheromones won't help achieve anything. I did start to feel a little guilty about leaving the colony to its own devices for this long. After digging out the third trap, I decided to start the arduous process of connecting my small network of pitfall traps to the main nest by way of a rather long underground tunnel. This particular project will take a long time to actually complete, particularly since I have to return to the traps to check on the situation every now and again, as well as making frequent, ever longer trips to transport the dirt and rock I've dug back to the surface. Trying to discreetly dispose of all of this dirt is proving more and more difficult. I've had to travel ever further away from my pitfalls to find a space to dispose of it, and the area around my traps is starting to look a little odd, with small piles of dirt and stone popping up everywhere. Thankfully, whenever monsters stomp through the area, they tend to scatter the dirt and pound it into the ground, concealing my work to some extent. The biggest change over the last day has been Tiny. My loafing ape friend has been living the perfect life of luxury, waking up in time to feast and then sleeping immediately. Every time he wakes up he's grown a little larger, and after repeating this process 4 times across the day he's shown significant growth, basically equaling me in size. Your springtime of youth is finally here, Tiny. Entering the growth phase is an important time for any monster. Perhaps Tiny is now in his teenage size, all he wants to do is sleep and eat. I'm half expecting to find him in the tunnel scratching crude graffiti on the walls and listening to punk music. Joke aside, the little guy is no longer that little. If I can continue to feed him up at this pace, he'll be able to display some strength in combat fairly soon. I can already see his arms starting to thicken up. After killing a few more monsters, I've gained the experience, but I haven't managed to get that crucial level 10. Every time I finish off a monster now, I await the pronouncement of Gandalf with all of my soul, but he hasn't given me those sweet words. I know patience is required, but it's so hard when the goal is so damned close. I should just dig some more, let the feeling of Ant Zen wash over me and take away my worldly desires. I return to digging out my tunnel, eager to connect my small network of traps to the colony. Gradually I lose my sense of time as I work, it's just so satisfying. There is no need, no desires, or wants. There is only the soil and rock in my mandibles. Crash. Pray. Get him. Dropping the hunk of rock I'd been carrying, I sprint towards my traps. So eager am I that I reach my next victim in merely moments. Furiously scrabbling at the walls of the pit and tearing apart the branches that have fallen around it is a rather large, agitated rabbit. Rather than the smaller rabbit I came into contact with during the brawl next to the anthill, this one is larger and more brutish. Its fur is thinner and patchy, almost as if the creature were sick. The thickly muscled limbs testify to the brute power of the creature, which only makes it look even more silly with the small bunny ears emerging proudly from the top of its head. As it thrashes, I manage to get a decent look at the face of my prey, a more beastly and hideous face I haven't seen yet. A fetid, diseased pallor, fluid leaking from each eye and missing teeth are the first impression I get, and further glimpses don't improve my opinion at all. This rabbit looks absolutely disgusting. The stench of death seems to ooze from every pore of the monster's body, filling the air and washing into the tunnel. I almost feel as if my whole body is pain just by looking at the beast. Wait a second. Quickly checking my HP, I quickly learn that I am in pain. I'm losing health just by being near this damn thing. How is it damaging me just by being nearby? I've never seen anything like this, Gandalf. The longer I delay, the more health I'm going to lose. Stop slacking about, Anthony, get in there. Pow. Pow. Reaching the opening of the tunnel into the pit, I present the back zone to my prey, eyeball it over my shoulder and unleash 2 blasts of the restrictive acid, catching the monster across the chest and 1 front paw. I don't want to take too many chances with this beastie, so I give it 2 shots of the acid straight away to try and restrict its movements. Looking at the monster, I'm concerned I may get poisoned or diseased if I were to be bitten or scratched during the fight. Best to slow it down first before I tussle in close quarters with it. I'd happily wait and give it a few more bursts before fighting, but my HP is dropping every second and I can't wait for too long. This thing needs to be finished as fast as possible. As the beastly rabbit roars and groans, its patchy fur proving little protection from the burning liquid that covers it, and then I hear a surprising sound behind me. Before I can dash forward and apply the righteous fury of mandibles to this rotting rabbit, from behind me, screeching in fury, comes Tiny. His bat face is twisted in rage as he hurtles forward, using his knuckles and hind legs to propel him forward. I can't even react before my ape friend has thrown himself on the much larger rabbit, punching and biting in a frenzy. What the hell? All of a sudden you want to fight? Why now, you slacking ape? Hurriedly I charge forward after him, not wanting to see any harm to come to my friend investment after all of this time. The rabbit reacts aggressively to Tiny's assault, yowling in a high piercing wail that seems to drill straight into my ears and attack my mind itself. Not enough though. Shaking of the distraction, I charge up my infused mandibles immediately. You're not going to last long, you damned rabbit. You and your death aura are not long for this world. I use my crushing bite at the same time, maximizing my damage and ripping straight into the nearest limb, the front leg on the rabbit's left side. As my mandibles crunch home, I can tell something feels off about the response I feel. The flesh of the creature feels thin and weak, ghastly juices and blood pour out of the limb all over my face. Oh my Gandalf. What the heck is this disgusting stuff? Ugh, califrazzle. It's in my eye. As soon as the liquid hits me, I can feel a burning pain start resonating through my head instantly. Is this acid? Has this stupid monster got acid blood or something? My HP is dropping even faster now. If this stuff eats through my carapace and inside my head, I'll be done for. Activate the regeneration immediately. Chapter 74, Dead. This darned rabbit is one nasty customer. Standing next to it will cause damage, and apparently biting into it will also cause damage. What the hell? In the end, I still have to finish it off as fast possible. As the regenerative fluid flow through my body, I keep the mana pouring out of my core and into my mandibles, preparing to take the damage and continue to chomp. Shockingly, this half-dead looking rabbit is still able to use the limb I attacked, despite a good chunk in the middle of it being crushed to bits. Since the rabbit is twice my size, it looms over me as it finally manages to get its feet under it. Tiny continues his rampage, thrashing the rabbit on its back, punching with his hands and tearing with his fingers, inflicting whatever damage he can. This is a completely new Tiny I'm witnessing here today. What happened to your chill little guy? The rabbit lashes out at me with a paw swipe, claws dripping yellow, virulent-looking fluid emerge from between the toes and lash at my carapace. I don't yield to this. Trust in the diamond carapace. Rather than dodging, I brace for the blow and prepare my counterattack. I need to deal decisive damage in order to finish off this monster quickly, lest all of these damage over time effects drag me down. Bam! The paw smashes into my side, terrible claws raking along my hide. Those damn claws are sharp. Sparks fly as those disgusting claws rake across me, gouging into the carapace but failing to break through. Phew. Now receive this bite. My mandibles, charged full of mana roaring out of my core, are ready to clamp down. I just need to maximize my damage potential. Instead of trying to attempt anything fancy, like reaching for the neck, I lunge forward before the rabbit can recover its balance, aiming directly for its midsection. This is going to hurt. Crushing bite. Crunch. With all of my strength, I rip directly into the creature's torso, shredding muscle and bone, tearing into the monster's body. Immediately that disgusting ooze erupts again, coating my head and jaws, but I don't stop. Bite. Crunch. The fetid flesh parts so easily under my assault. I'm not even sure I need to use my infused mandibles to inflict serious damage, but I won't turn it off. This thing needs to die. I can't even see Tiny now, my vision is blocked by this acidic fluid and the monster itself. One drawback of having to attack with your face is that there is extremely little distance between my eyes and the enemy's body. I'm basically getting an eyeful of suppurating rabbit flesh and fur right now. If it weren't for my compound eyes giving such a broad range of vision, I'd be super disoriented doing this. Bite more. Die, you damn rabbit. Crash. A tremendous force smacks me into the ground, causing my legs to splay instantly as the rabbit brings both fists down on my back in a hammer blow. The sheer mass of the creature adds force to the strike, knocking all of the wind out of me. Gah! That one stung. I hastily check my HP. 30 left. With this acidic fluid on me and the constant HP drain, my health is rapidly shrinking. I need to finish the fight. Shaking off my dizziness, I push myself back up before the rabbit has prepared its next strike and dive forward once again. You will get bitten. Chomp. Utilizing the piercing chomp this time, my mandibles rip into the wound I've already carved into the monster, the pointed edge of my mandibles tearing deep into the rabbit's chest, destroying it internally. Under my assault, the rabbit finally shudders and grows still. I hastily withdraw my face from the wound and retreat in time to see the foe slump to the ground defeated. My face is still burning. I've never fought a monster that was more of a disgusting pain in the butt than this thing. At least, I got the experience. As the creature slumps forward, clearly dead, Tiny is standing astride its back, his right fist plunged deep into the monster's back and his arm crackling with blue electrical energy. He slowly withdraws his hand, the flashing and arcing electricity fading slowly. There is a satisfied look on his bat face as he shakes his limbs out as if just finishing a draining workout. I look from Tiny to the monster and back to Tiny. The monster is clearly dead. Did you steal me, you cheeky ape? Unbelievable. I've not heard the voice of Gandalf at all. This can only mean one thing: I didn't get the last hit. Tiny jumps off the monster's back and runs towards me, his face is shining with a pleased light. He honestly looks like a puppy. A bat-faced ape puppy. You're lucky I like you, cheeky ape. I can't be mad at him. I reach up with one of my legs and give him a pat on the head. You did good, little guy. Even if you stole my XP and delayed my evolution, I'm not mad. Oh whoops, My claw might have been a little tight there on your head. Sorry, buddy. Well, what do we do now with all of the biomass? Is this stuff even edible? After the burning of my face has faded, I check my HP to ensure my health isn't still going down. Thankfully it isn't. Whatever was causing that constant health loss is clearly no longer in effect now that the monster is dead. Remembering that nauseating feeling of biting into the creature, I gingerly approach it. Orf. The smell is terrible. It smells like someone had a pet rat that died, was left in the cage for a week, and then flushed down a full toilet. This is a new low. Are you just gonna let the biomass sit there, Anthony? You have to at least try it, man. Oak. Here it goes. Oh my word. Oh heck. Rug. Perk. You have consumed a new source of biomass, Quantum Morse Labor Tabies. You are awarded 1 biomass. Basic profile of the Quantum Morse Labor Tabies unlocked. Priyangafargun. Gasp. Just let me breathe for a sec. Phew. So then, monsters can throw up. I mean, the taste was very similar to the smell, so I shouldn't be too shocked, but holy moly. That was next level. Let's check this profile. Quantum Morse Labor Tabies, Decaying Death Rabbit, evolved from the Bloodtooth Rabbit. This monster has adapted the shadow affinity of the base creature into a fearsome death affinity that manifests in a malicious aura that drains life from all around it, causing the monster to lead a very solitary life indeed. The body of this monster is filled with death energy at all times, which will have several effects. You don't say. You know what, if I was to describe the taste of a body filled with death energy, this would likely be it. So, was this some form of zombie rabbit? Is that what you are trying to tell me, Gandalf? Huh. Zombie rabbits now. There is no way I'm eating the rest of this thing. Even Tiny is looking at me as if I'm insane for trying it. Are you the smart guy now, eh? Just because you've grown a bit and can fight, you're going to get all uppity with me? What a waste. I'll guess I'll just have to wait and hope this place will reclaim this mess. I don't think I have to worry about monsters being attracted by the smell, since rather than the juicy allure of food, I would more describe it as the horrific stench of the damned. In fact, this thing might even discourage monsters from entering this area and make all 3 of my traps useless. Please just disappear, you horrid mess. While I'm waiting, I will return to digging. Too many developments are happening here. I need to clear my mind. Thankfully, the body of the death rabbit melts into the soil and vanishes about half an hour later, taking that reeking stench with it. A pleasant surprise is that after all of the remains have faded, a small round gem is left lying innocently in the dirt. A core. Since I don't have a particular use for it, I'll leave it partially buried in the wall of my underground tunnel for now, where it won't be disturbed. I'll definitely come back and experiment with this later. I reset the trap, minus bait, and return to excavating my tunnel. About an hour later, I receive a pleasant surprise. Excavation has reached level 5. Tunnel Sense has reached level 5, upgrade available. Ooh. Tunnel Sense must have been leveling as I tried to aim this tunnel at the nest while digging. This is nice, haven't been able to upgrade a skill for some time. Tunnel Sense minus Tunnel Map. Cost 1 SP, this upgrade improves the sense of underground direction with a powerful memory aid, allowing for the full recall of tunnel layout. Sounds nice. I'll take it. Chapter 75, Reconnect with my people. Once I confirm the upgrade, that strange trickling sensation flows over my brain, like someone tickling my mind. When the feeling eventually fades, I eagerly attempt to think about my tunnel sense, and something shocking appears in my mind. It's a map. It's a 3-dimensional map of all of the tunnels I've seen. This is insanely useful. Suspended in my thoughts like a picture for which I can suddenly recall all of the details, I can see every tunnel I've been in, everywhere in the open space and the inside the nest, connected together in one giant map. I can even make out the marking I left in the tunnels when I fled the upper chamber. This is so good. I'll never be lost again, no matter where I go underground. I'll always be able to dig my tunnels exactly where I want them to. I can already make out that my trap network has almost been connected to the nest, only a little further and a slight course correction are needed. My tunnel map skill is level 1 though, which means it must be able to level up. I shouldn't think of it as perfect, there must be something to improve about it or it wouldn't gain XP, surely? At any rate, all praise the tunnel map and all praise to Gandalf. Full of cheer, I get back to digging my tunnel. I really want to reconnect with the colony so I can see how things are going and help out as needed, whilst my trap network can assist the colony's growth as a safe way to secure biomass. Once I've achieved this, I'll keep hunting until I've evolved, and then, fortified with my immense new strength, hopefully, I'll keep scouting, preemptively protecting the colony from danger whilst seizing whatever chances I can find to improve myself. At least this is the plan. It takes another hour of digging to finally break through to the nest. My tunnel has connected to the shaft that descends from the anthill about a third of the way down. I didn't want to dig further down. It would make the tunnel significantly longer, and if I did connect to the brood chamber, it would pose an unnecessary risk to the colony itself. As I break through, there is some dirt and rubble that falls down the tunnel, dropping down to the colony below. Oops, sorry about that. A few workers making their way up and down look at me oddly before going back on their merry way. Everything seems fine, I guess. I might wander down and check how things are going. Descending back into the nest, I can see the workforce continues to be busy in my absence. Food is being shuffled around and the nest being constantly maintained. Poking my nose in on the brood chambers, I can see that the larvae are bigger now but don't look nearly so full. In the new chamber, the many eggs that were stored there have hatched, but the larvae look anything but full. We have a food issue. Not to worry, little grubs. I shall provide. Straight back to the trap network I go. Tiny is still sleeping when I return, slumped against the tunnel wall with both arms tucked under his chin. The guy is much taller than me now, which is an achievement for him even if I am much longer than I am tall. Gone are the days I could look down on his bat face. Seems all of the traps are set but no prey thus far. The colony needs an injection of food in order to keep the brood growing quickly. I could leave my trap network and risk hunting in the open, but that could get complicated very quickly. Best case, I get into a nasty fight which may drag the workers in again. Worst case, I get myself killed, buried beneath a flood of monsters. Reluctantly, I decide to wait. The idea behind the trap networks is solid and has proven to be effective so far, allowing me to fight prey one-on-one and quietly dispose of the biomass without attracting unwanted attention. With humans scurrying about above ground and the hordes of monsters swarming everywhere, discretion is called for. If the trap network is not getting results quickly enough, add more traps. Work on traps 4 and 5 begins immediately. Before they are finished, a small group of wolf dragon cubs tumbles into a pitfall and Tiny joins me in battling them. Between the two of us, they are quickly dispatched. Tiny even steals one last hit from me. I won't mind that, however. I give one body to Tiny and use 2 others to ensure all of my traps abated, which leaves me 1 to donate to the colony. Gripping it in my mandibles, I carry it back to the junction between my tunnel and the colony and drop it on the edge. It isn't long before a worker spies the biomass and grabs it, carrying it back down into the heart of the colony to be dispensed. Good on you, buddy. Feels good to contribute to the colony again, even only a little. Back to the network I go. I spend another day battling the soil and occasional monsters before my new traps are fully prepared and baited. Tiny takes a good chunk of the biomass and I forfeit my share to the colony for the time being. Those larvae need feeding. I'm so exhausted by this point that I fall into a very welcome state of torpor. Feels good to nap. Crash. I startle awake to the welcome sound of snapping branches and rustling vegetation as another pitfall cover collapses under the tread of a monster. Hopefully not an unevolved centipede again. What is the point of fighting a single centipede, honestly? I prod Tiny awake and scurry off towards the trap, 6 legs flickering with speed. Time is always of the essence when a trap is triggered. The faster I get there, the more disoriented and tangled the prey will be. Roar. An ear-splitting, shattering roar echoes down the tunnel. The sheer power of that roar hits me almost like a physical blow. I can feel the blood inside me running cold. What the heck was that? As I approach the pit, I can see the head of a terrifying monster glaring at me down the tunnel. It seems this monster is too large to fit entirely in the pitfall. It appears to have stepped on the pit with its front legs and tumbled into the pit head first. I can only imagine the rear of this creature is currently sticking out of the pitfall above ground, its bum exposed to the air even as its face is ground into the dirt. It would all be so amusing if it weren't for just how fearsome this creature looks. It's a bear. A massive, massive bear. Thick dark brown fur streaked with green frames its brutal, furious eyes. Its snout opens wide to reveal its gaping map as it roars again, stunning me senseless with the force of its rage. Holy moly! Two front paws, each the size of my midsection, scratch and shove at the ground as the bear tries to push its massive body out of the hole. On the end of each paw, long claws gouge into the ground, raking long grooves into the dirt walls of the pit. You know what? I don't have to fight everything that drops into my traps, right? Not sure if ant versus bear is something I want to experience, could just let this one go, right? As I'm wavering in my decision, watching this enormous bear, almost blind with rage as it struggles to right itself, I hear a shuffling noise behind me and my heart just drops. Please don't. Just. Not now. My silent pleas go completely unheard on this occasion as Tiny dashes past me, his eyes alight with the joy of battle and his body radiating enthusiasm for the fight. I mean. Fine. Fine. You may be dumber than a stump that has been uprooted and carved into the shape of a smaller, less intelligent stump, but nobody could question your courage, Tiny. Or are you just too stupid to understand odds? How could I let Tiny risk himself and not assist? Obviously I cannot. This action will not stand. Onward, Anthony, to battle. I kick the motor into high gear and hurl myself forward as fast as I can. I want to try and reach the bear before Tiny does so I can draw the aggro and protect my ape friend. You haven't finished paying me back yet, Tiny. You're not allowed to kick the bucket. Chapter 76 I Can T-Bear I. When Tiny notices I'm running forward, about to overtake him, he speeds up. Stop it, you stupid ape. I'm trying to save your damn life. Oblivious to my good intentions, Tiny is sprinting with all of his ape might, grinning from ear to ear and screeching out his simple-minded lust for battle. Bless you, you idiot. Gritting my mandibles tight, I exert every ounce of my strength into my legs, moving them so quickly they flicker in my eyesight. Is this the legendary shadow step technique? It's enough. Triumph surging in my heart, I pass my ape companion at the last possible moment and break out of the tunnel and into the open pit. Haha. Take that, Tiny, you slug. Oh right, the bear. Before I have a chance to throw the brakes on, I smash into the bear, effectively head-butting it rather close to the eye, quite hard due to my impressive momentum. The bear, of course, is extremely impressed by this action and attempts to repay me by levering its face out of the dirt and biting my head off. Duck. The massive jaws snap shut directly over my head. Thankfully, I've learned from past experience and remembered to pull my antennae down when I ducked. I'm not losing my antennae this time. Okay. Now I'm face to face with a truly terrifying and enormous bear monster. Now that I'm closer to it, the scale of the monster is even more impressive. This thing is probably the same size as Tiny or the Titan Croc, but is most likely even more massive. I suspect this thing weighs even more than Titan Croc. It's carrying some serious heft. Watch out. Paw. Leaping back, I manage to avoid a fearsome swipe of the beast's paw, the claws whistling past my face. Thankfully, the monster is considerably restrained in this pit. Its massive upper body and head occupy almost all of the available space, making it rather crowded in here now that Tiny and I have joined the fray. It would be nice if I try and build up a mana ball to blast this thing, but since Tiny has decided to engage in melee with it, in these narrow confines, I can only make use of my finest ant-like qualities to make the best of this situation. Scrabbling up the wall, I make my way out of the reach of those fearsome teeth and begin to charge up my infused mandibles. Waves of mana flow from my core, streaming through my body and charging my mandibles with vibrant energy. Hope you're ready for this, bear. Crushing bite. Thunk. Holy bristling eyebrows of Gandalf, that is tough. When I snap my mandibles down on the bear's hide, right on his flank, it feels like I'm digging into a tree trunk with a knife. This bear is ridiculously tough. Tougher than anything I've come across so far in this place. I can't bite through it, even with my infused mandibles. The bear roars indignantly in response to my attempted wounding and struggles even more violently to free itself from the trap, finally managing to push its paws under its face and start to lever his head out of the dirt. I'm not sure where Tiny has got to, no doubt punching the bear in the eyeball or something else horrifically dangerous. In order to keep the monster distracting, I keep biting, hoping to eventually carve through this creature's ridiculously thick hide. Using the piercing chomp this time, I bite again at the creature's side. Thunk. What the heck is this bear made of? His hide feels as tough as nails. My mandibles, aided by the bonus penetrating power of the piercing bite, are able to dig deeper than before, but I still don't feel as if I'm getting meaningful internal damage to this monster. This guy is tank. From the other side of the bear, above the constant grunting and growls as the massive monster tries to free itself, I can hear the chirping crackle of electricity. Clearly Tiny has warmed up his fists and is ready to go to work. There comes a thumping noise and the entire body of the bear flashes with electrical light. The bear groans and slumps momentarily as the potent energy rips through its body. Nice, Tiny. I'll give him another chomp. Thunk. Damn it. I think I was able to bite a little deeper that time, but this bear is a tough nut to crack. I try to pull more mana from my core, drawing it out faster and faster before it packs into my mandibles, causing the light they give off to be more intense each passing second. As the bear is making more headway in extricating itself, I decide to jump off the wall and clamber onto its back. Pushing off, I latch onto the beast's fur with all 6 of my claws, holding fast even as I'm rocked back and forth. I can see from here that the hind legs of the bear are getting a decent hold of the ground outside the pit, allowing the monster to pull itself out more effectively. It won't be long now and this guy will be free. If possible, I need to deal some damage before then. I pour more and more of my mana into my mandibles, causing them to be crackling with intense power. I swear my face feels like it's on fire. I don't think this is particularly safe. Taking care not to hit Tiny, who continues to fling lightning punches into the bear's side, I aim and quickly fire off some rapid acid shots. Pow. 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 How do you like that? To be honest, this bear doesn't seem to mind all that much at all. The restrictive acid is doing its job, hardening and sticking to everything that it hit. I can see it sizzling and biting into the creature's hide on its right side and front leg, but the bear doesn't seem to respond in any meaningful way. I think he's too damn strong for the restriction to be effective, and his hide is too thick for the acid to deal meaningful damage to him. If this bit doesn't work, then I hope I can grab Tiny in my mandibles and drag him into the tunnel where the bear can't follow because me might be snowed. My last-ditch effort might have to be the forceful mana shout, but I'm not sure I can fight this creature head-on and condense enough mana to do meaningful damage. Whatever, just bite now and worry about the rest after. Piercing chomp. Crunch. Snapping down so hard the muscles in my head positively creak, my mandibles gouge into the bear, meeting the incredible resistance that had frustrated me so far, and then they keep going, biting deep. Finally, piercing chomp has reached level 4. This time I get a reaction. The bear bellows in outrage and violently twists itself left and right, redoubling its efforts to extract itself. Pushing hard with its front legs and lowering its back, it finally manages to lever enough momentum to drag the top half of its body up, pressing its paws into the pitfall wall to prevent falling in again. Time for one more piercing chomp. Crunch. Every part of my face is screaming at me, and I'm not sure if it's because I've focused too much mana or that I'm on the verge of pulling a face muscle, but once again my mandibles bite home, ripping through the bear and lacerating muscle and bone. The bear roars furiously and slumps down slightly in response to my assault, giving Tiny just enough time to ready himself in the bottom of the pit. He charges himself up with electricity until it crackles over his arms like writhing electric eels before leaping and delivering a two-handed punch directly to the belly of the bear. I have 2 thoughts at this moment. First, good job Tiny, that looks so awesome. Second, don't you dare steal the last hit from me, you cheeky ape. As the electrical attack zaps straight through the beast, stunning it and causing tremendous internal damage, I pull everything I can from my core, desperate for one last strike. The place where I've bitten the bear twice now is looking quite rough. The bear's brown and green hide is torn and punctured, offering far less protection. This will be the last strike. I really don't think my mandibles can take any more mana. I swear they are starting to give off smoke. Crushing bite. Tearing straight through the monster's defense, my mandibles exhibit unparalleled crushing force, tearing through bone and organs without mercy. I ram my face straight into the wound, giving myself a truly unpleasant eyeful, but also allowing my mandibles to reach as deep into the bear's vitals as possible. This had better work. Finally, my mandibles can take no more, and the flow of mana from my core slows before stopping entirely. I've spent almost all of my mana on these few bite attacks. But it worked. You have slain level 14 Ursus Terra Tyrannos. You have gained experience. You have reached the level 10. You have reached the level cap evolution menu available. Take that, Tiny. The XP is mine. Chapter 77 Crossroads. I've finally done it. Finally. I played the patient game, minimized my risks, limited my exposure, and it slowed me down for sure, but I've finally reached this point. I've been so tempted. Gandalf knows how tempted I've been. I could have just dashed out of the tunnels and into the forest, battling monsters with reckless abandon. It would have been glorious, a sea of battle and endless challenge. Only a true monster would be able to rise above that struggle to evolve, this the choice of the brave, the bold and the courageous. Also the choice of the idiot. I, Anthony, am not an idiot. The proof is in the pudding. I am alive and I have reached level 10 without drawing unwanted attention to myself or putting the colony at risk. Who could possibly argue that I made the wrong decision? Ewahahaha. Honestly, I'm extremely delighted right now. Tiny is giving me a look of betrayal, as if I'd stolen candy straight from his hands. Are you that addicted to kill stealing from me, you cheeky monkey? Cheer up, Tiny, we are going to have plenty of biomass for the moment. As pumped as I am to evolve, we have to deal with everything in order. Things must be in their proper place before evolution can occur. For now we have an enormous bear worth of biomass that we need to deal with. For starters, this bear is so damn big we can't just drag it down into the tunnel in one piece, so the unpleasant task of butchery falls to me. Thankfully, now that the monster is no longer alive, its unnatural toughness is somewhat reduced, so despite being rough going, I eventually manage to get all of the food down into the tunnel. Then I take a few more moments to reset the cover for the pitfall. Down in the tunnels, Tiny is already drooling all over himself, ready to start cramming his face. There is so much food down here, it is taking up an inordinate amount of space. No way we finish all of this in one go. May as well get to it. Nom nom. You have consumed a new source of biomass, Ursus Terra Tyrannos. You are awarded 1 biomass. Basic profile of the Ursus Terra Tyrannos unlocked. Ursus Terra Tyrannos, Earth Bear Tyrant. This monster is known for its extreme toughness and strength. Surprisingly fast, this beast is ferocious and easily aggravated. Known for its affinity to the earth and natural environs, this monster has powerful regenerative abilities. It was damn tough, alright. Not sure I was able to witness these regenerative abilities though. Perhaps Tiny zapping him with electricity was mucking up his internals. At any rate, he's food now. By the time Tiny and I are groaning and full, I've managed to stow away 7 points of biomass from the bear, which takes me up to 15. Despite this, we've only eaten half of the damn thing. Before mutating and having a nice nap, I start transporting the remainder down the tunnel to the colony. On the third trip, I'm met on the way by a fellow mature worker ant. There seems to be more of these guys around at the moment. Perhaps the experience harvested by my earlier actions has been successful as I'd hoped. When we pass each other, we do something I've seen a few times but haven't experienced much myself. I have seen ants do this a lot in the wild and also in my own pet colony when I was a human. When 2 workers meet each other, they frequently inspect each other using their antennae, communicating in some strange way, checking the scent of the other ants to ensure they are of the same colony. So as this worker comes towards me, it approaches me head on, stops, and then we engage in a short moment of slapping each other about the antennae. To me it feels almost like an extended high five. I'm not precisely sure what information is communicated, but I get a vague feeling we are generally pleased to see each other, and then off he goes, exploring down the tunnel towards the traps, probably following the scent of the biomass I've been carrying. I passed the same worker on the way back to the traps. Apparently they had little trouble finding the rest of the food and has started transporting it back to the colony. I can probably leave the rest of that task to the workers, who will no doubt show up after following the trail. Looks like my trap network will officially become colony territory soon, as I've no doubt these workers are going to start laying down food pheromone trails leading here. This could be a good thing in the end, as I may not even need to be here for the traps to provide food for the colony. If I set and bait the traps and leave, there will probably be some workers hanging about looking for food due to the trails. When a monster falls into the pit, These workers will immediately attack and call for reinforcements with which they should be able to take on most monsters without my help. This could work out much better than I thought. With the rest of the bear taken care of, it's time to take care of the next order of business. I need to spend my biomass. I need 12 points in order to take my pheromones from their current +2 all the way to +5, which will leave me with 3, enough to take my legs from +1 to +2 and have 1 point left in change. It's a shame I wasn't able to fully upgrade everything prior to evolution. I don't think it would make much difference to anything, but for the sake of completeness I'd been hoping for it. Don't be too choosy, Anthony. Be grateful for what you've got. Okay, here we go. Do you want to mutate? Pheromones to +5 and legs to +2? This will cost 14 biomass. Yes. At this level you can choose a mutation advancement. Please select from the menu. There must be some juicy choices for this one. The menu in my mind doesn't fail to impress, an almost extravagantly long list of possible upgrades to choose from, each with its own pros and cons: longer-lasting pheromones, wider-range pheromones, mind-affecting pheromones, sensory manipulation pheromones, poisonous invasive pheromones. Holy crap. There are so many ridiculous options. Control your saliva, Anthony. Preserve your dignity as the highest-leveled worker in the colony. I continue to scroll down, and there are more and more juicy choices appearing every moment. Who would have thought the pheromone gland would have such a wide variety of directions to choose from? Offensive pheromones? Defensive pheromones? Manipulative pheromones? It's all here. Then I see an option that I'm not sure I can turn down. Pheromone language. Vastly increases the variety of pheromones produced and increases the sophistication of the pheromone release system, creating a more robust way of communicating using pheromones. So, I could talk. This would actually give me the ability to talk? That is fantastic, Gandalf. I've been living inside my own head this entire time. It would be wonderful to be able to talk, even if I'm just talking to myself. I don't have vocal cords. The best I've managed so far is to snap my mandibles at things in an attempt to express mood. I'm not exactly sure who I'd be able to talk to. I mean, the workers can sense pheromones, but without this particular upgrade they wouldn't really be able to talk back. Would they be able to understand what I'm saying anyway? Even if there is nobody in the colony I can speak to, so far this is the only method I've come across that gives me a chance to communicate at all. If I pass it up, who knows if I'll be able to find another option? Perhaps at some point telepathy will come up as a brain upgrade or a type of magic I could learn, but how far in the future would that be, if it even happened? No, I'm not willing to let this chance slide. I will seize it. Select the pheromone language upgrade. Hugracafla ZZ. Time to lie on the ground again. After a few minutes, when the mutation is completed, I stand up and inspect my status. Name, Anthony. Level, 10 core. Might, 31. Toughness, 22. Cunning, 25. Will, 18. HP, 50/50. MP, 50/50. Skills: Excavation level 4, Improved Acid Shot level 5, Grip level 4, Crushing Bite level 7, Advanced Stealth level 4, Piercing Chomp level 4, Tunnel Map level 1, Mana Shaping level 2, Forceful Mana level 2, External Mana Manipulation level 1, Mana Sensing level 1, Core Mechanic level 1, Exoskeleton Defense level 1. Mutations: Focused Eyes +5, Infrared Antennae +5, Restrictive Acid +5, Legs +2, Infused Mandibles +5, Diamond Carapace +5, Limb Regeneration Gland +5, Pheromone Language +5. Species: Mature Ant Worker, Formica. Skill points, 1. Biomass, 1. So this is it. This is me before my second evolution. Chapter 78: The Actual Evolving Situation. Biomass has been spent, food has been dispensed, traps are taken care of, and Tiny is happily sleeping off his food coma. The time is ripe. There is something so exciting and freeing about being able to become a completely new creature via evolution. A human changes over their lifetime also, going from baby to toddler to child to teen to adult, but the process is so slow that the change doesn't always feel meaningful. Only in hindsight can you appreciate the different stages of your life. I didn't even make it to adult in my life as a human. After more than 10 years. I've not even been in my new world of Pangera for a single year, and I've already reached my second evolution. If I were to line it up with the stages of human life, then I've been a baby monster, currently I'm a toddler monster, and I shall promote myself to child monster. Considering how weak the ant species is individually, these analogies actually feel pretty accurate to me. Okay, no more stalling, Anthony, time to go for it. Would you like to use the evolution menu? I would. Congratulations on reaching the maximum level for your current species. Evolution will allow you change your form and increase your stats as a monster. Warning, evolving will make securing XP and biomass more difficult as fewer rewards are given for preying on creatures less evolved than yourself. A special core has been detected. By advancing your core beyond normal limits, special options may be available. Your evolution options are as follows. Juvenile Queen, Formica. Soldier, Formica. Monster Worker Ant. Minus Special, Command Ant, Formica. Minus Special, Mind Ant, Formica. What the heck? So many choices. I only had 2 last time, and one of those involved changing my species. Okay. Let's slow down and not prejudge. Take the options one by one and let Gandalf explain each one. Juvenile Queen, Formica. A young queen of the Formica species, this evolution includes wings and an egg-laying organ allowing the new queen to begin her own colony. Okay. Wings. Egg-laying. All very queen-like stuff. Just one problem. One little query that I have. I'm a boy. Why the heck do I have a queen option? Wait. I remember now. How could I be so stupid? I've known this for ages. All workers in a colony are female. I'm a female ant. Damn it, Gandalf. Is it funny? Huh? Taking someone who was a boy and stuffing them into a female monster body. Is this your hobby? You lousy bearded buffoon. May your robes be ever gray. Grrrrrr. Look, when I calm down and think about it, being a male ant wouldn't be that good. Male ants basically mate with a queen and then crawl away to die, acting like disposable fertilization machines who are then frequently eaten by the colony. In this world, I'm not even sure male ants exist at all. The queen seems to be doing just fine without mating, laying eggs at a steady rate. I'm not really sure monsters in this place procreate in a normal way at all. So I guess gender isn't all that important to a monster. But still, I'm annoyed. Not really sure I want to be a queen anyway, to be honest. The wings sound awesome, but I don't really want to be stuck inside the colony laying eggs all the time. I mean, I may be moving away from my humanity, but laying eggs out of the business district just doesn't sit right with me. Next option. Soldier, Formica, a larger, more combat-oriented worker. This evolution includes plus 10 might bonus to size. Okay. So if I was to avoid the queen route, then becoming a larger, fighting-oriented worker would be the choice. This selection seems to come without any free body upgrades, but instead a significant boost to the might stat, all of which is dumped into size. With all of the energy in my core, I could probably take my might score up another 10 or 15 points easily, making me a seriously strong ant. This seems interesting, but let's move on. Monster Worker Ant, losing the species Formica and becoming a generic Monster Worker Ant. This selection allows 2 free body part choices as compensation. This selection is back. I would lose my species, but this time I would get 2 free choices of body part. Is this because my species would change but generally everything else would stay the same? As nice as 2 free new body parts would be, I would be forced to abandon the colony and go back to leading the solitary monster life. I guess I would still have Tiny with me, but I'm reluctant to take this choice. I like staying with the colony. It's almost like having a family, something I didn't get to experience as a human. Just having a place with other creatures in it who won't attack me is a nice feeling. I don't think I'll take this choice. Now for the real juice. Let's see if the special evolutions meet my expectations. Special, Command Ant, Formica. This special evolution unlocks a new evolutionary chain of Formica Commander. With this evolution comes a +5 bonus to might and a choice of aura gland, which would be tuned to affect nearby monsters of the same species. Oohhh. Special indeed. This choice completely lives up to the hype. A new evolutionary path of Commander Ant A. The might bonus is nice, but I'd get a free aura effect to buff nearby workers. That is super sweet. So when I fight with the colony, all of the workers would be stronger. Oh boy, that is tough to pass up. 1 to go. Special Mind Ant Formica. This special evolution unlocks a new evolutionary chain, a Formica Mind Ant. This evolution grants a +5 bonus to cunning and a free magic affinity gland. OHHHHHHHH baby. This is also tasty. Cunning was freaking expensive for me to upgrade last time, so a free boost is pretty damn attractive. Not to mention the magic affinity gland. Would that let me produce one kind of force naturally? Like how Tiny can make lightning or the Titan Croc spits fireballs? As expected of the special evolution choices, they really do live up to the billing. I definitely plan to choose one of the special options. They both give me options that are extremely tempting and hard to come by, with the added bonus of not removing my Formica species tag, so I don't have to risk expulsion by the colony. But which one to choose? The command option is obviously more fighty, and the aura bonus is so tasty. The idea of being an incredible ant general, leading troops into battle is so appealing, my heart is thumping just picturing that scene. Whereas the Mind Ant, Magical Ant Supreme, fast-tracking my development as a magic monster user, giving me a free affinity to boot. I could be spitting fireballs or lightning, or goodness knows what. I don't even have a clue what the extent of the possible choices could be. Gah. This is hard. I mean, the commander choice obviously makes me much stronger when acting together with other ants, since the aura will be able to show its full effect only when I'm with the rest of the workforce, whereas the Mind Ant will be more suited to a lone ant style, although that isn't to say I wouldn't be effective when fighting together with the colony due to my increased magical prowess. The Queen may even have a magic affinity organ for healing magic, making her the ideal support mage. I could do something similar possibly, or I could just max out on damage. I just can't decide. I need some time to think. It would be so nice to have someone to consult on this. I only just gained the ability to talk and I've yet to test it out. Maybe I'll go and try to chat with a few ants, see if the Queen is awake. I doubt they'll be able to understand me, but I might get some inspiration during my trip. After quickly checking on my traps and making sure Tiny is still sleeping soundly, I make my way down the long tunnel towards the colony. Whilst I'm walking, I try to get the hang of my new pheromone gland. Using it before was extremely easy. My ant instincts were able to discern which scents could be released, and there are only about 8 to choose from. Post-upgrade, I can tell that the number of scents has dramatically increased and the organ itself has improved the complexity at which it can release them, blending them to create an even wider variety of signals. As part of the mutation process, my innate understanding of the gland has improved, but I still need a little practice properly controlling it. After all this time being unable to speak, it feels really strange to be communicating, even if it is by a sophisticated scent language. Let's try this. Oi. Hapo. Nope. Hello. Aha. A passing worker suddenly stops and gives me a few friendly taps with the antennae before moving on. What the heck? Was that ant responding to my greeting? Just to check, I wait for another worker to move past and I try again. Hello. Again, the worker stops, turns to face me and engages in what I'm increasingly feeling is the ant high five before moving on. This is working. They can't really talk back, but at least they are able to detect the friendly nature of my communication. I could almost cry. It's so nice to speak. Chapter 79 Chatterbox. Now that I know I can talk to my colony members, even if they can't talk back, I don't hold back and start to throw words at every worker I meet on my way into the nest. Hey, how are your? Still needs a bit of work on that one. Who's that work going for yar? So close. Blice to see you, a blarn. Nearly had it. As I wander about cheerfully greeting the ants around me, they typically respond in the same way, by turning and tapping me about the antennae before going back on their way. I'm not really fussed by the lack of response to my blather, just talking and getting the hang of my new mutation is reward enough for me. Checking in on the brood, I can see the little grubs are looking a little larger and a little less sad than they were before, pleasingly plump and growing. They'll become new workers soon enough. After shouting "see you later" to the workers, I make my way down to the Queen's chamber. By this time I've gotten used to saying whatever is on my mind to every ant I see, so when I walk in front of the Queen, who is standing still and accepting a grooming for her attendant workers, I give a friendly wave of the antennae and say, "Hey there. How's it hambing, Queen?" The enormous ant turns her head slowly and ponderously before looking down at me with her large, unblinking eyes. Hambing, she said. HHH. She can talk? The queen continues to look down at me quizzically as I stare dumbfounded. Hambing, she asks again. This sensation of talking and listening using scent is very different to what I'm used to. When the queen speaks the first I'm finding my antennae are not only able to distinguish the words she is speaking but also the difference in tone and voice. Her voice sounds patient and warm. I concentrate harder to try and not make a mistake in my words. I misspoke, you're, queen. Ness. She said, before turning away and once again becoming still as the workers continue to groom her. I'm still a bit stunned. So the queen can use pheromone language too? Did she choose this as a mutation advancement or is it something that she gets for being a queen? Does it really matter? I have someone to talk to. After a moment I try to strike up the conversation again. Hey queen, how are you? This is apparently the best I can come up with. Once more the queen troubles herself to turn back and face me before replying. Well, are you well? She replies. I'm almost giddy. A conversation. An actual conversation. Oh, I'm good. I mean, well, I am glad, she says, before beginning to turn away again. Could I get some advice? I blurt out. The queen once again looks back to me, patiently waiting for my words. Actually talking to a giant monster ant is a little more difficult than I expected it to be. Much more difficult than, say, having a chat with your school friend, not that. I did much of that. It seems kind of obvious, but I need to keep in mind that the queen isn't human and unlike me, she never was. I'm not exactly sure how her mind works, what it is that is important to her. She's probably not even that old. I mean, technically in this world I'm less than a year old. Not that it really matters to monsters, I guess. I'm getting ready to evolve. I just wondered if you had any advice on what I should choose. The queen didn't respond for a long moment and I was starting to think I might need to repeat the question when eventually her antennae reached down and tapped mine before tapping me on the head. I sense a strong core in you, she said. Yes. I respond. You have fought well for our kind. Choose as you wish, and continue to use your strength on behalf of your family. But I'm not certain what evolution is best. I can sense a faint amusement in the words of the queen as she responds to me. All paths lead to greater strength, and greater strength will improve the lives of our people. To the colony, it matters not what you choose. Having said that, she decisively turns away, giving me one last pat on the head with her antennae. I think I've gotten all the help I'm likely to get from Her Majesty at this time. Turning around, I start to make my way back to my trap network. Putting aside the buzz I'm getting from having my first conversation in months, I have to say that what the queen had to say makes perfect sense from the colony perspective. Every evolution makes the monster stronger. The colony itself doesn't give a rat's ass which one you pick as long as you use your new power to assist the growth of the colony. So in the end, it just comes down to my personal preference. Do I want to be a commander or do I want to be a magic ant? A general or a wizard? I mean, when I think about it like that, it has to be wizard, right? Like, this is magic we are talking about. Magic. I could lord over the battlefield like a friggin' god if I can throw fireballs and lightning bolts around. Even what little magic I've seen has been super powerful. I want to be a magic user for sure. Mind Ant is the only way. I rush back to the trap network and find everything much the same as I left it. Tiny still sleeping and the traps are prepared but without any prey for the moment. Excellent. Waste no more time on your doubt, Anthony. Commence the evolution. Select Mind Ant. Your monster core has been formed and enhanced. It will provide bonus energy to your evolution. Manual evolution is active. As it did the first time, my consciousness is pulled into the evolution space with dizzying menus and options available to customize the process of my evolution. The first that strikes me is that I have far more energy to spend this time around. My core only contained 10 megapixels when I first evolved, and that provided a significant boost to my stats. This time I have 5 times that amount. I can't wait to see what I can do with it. The first order of business that I need to take care of is to select my magic affinity organ. Magic affinity organ, this body part will attach to the core and drain magic power from it, converting that magic power into a specific type of energy to be used by the owner. This shortcuts manual energy transformation and makes the selected type of magic much easier for a monster to use. When the organ is filled to capacity, the drain on the core will cease. Okay then. So basically the organ takes MP from core until it is full, converting it into the type of energy I select when I choose the organ itself. Alright then, let's see the list. Holy Mother of Gandalf. Why is this list so long? All the usual elements are here: fire, water, lightning, clearly tiny. As this one: air, earth, poison, metal, wood, light, dark and more. Then there are some more far out ones: death, mental, space, entropy, time, healing, creation, illusion, chaos, and on it goes. There are so many. What the hell am I supposed to choose, Gandalf? Oak. Seek calm. Imagine digging. Digging away at the soil one mandible load at a time, tunneling into the earth for ages and ages. Phew. Think through the process logically. Firstly, we will put aside all of the natural elemental choices. Why? Because they are boring. I'm sure they'd be powerful and effective, but they sound so simple. Shoot fire or ice. It's simplistic. Who is to say I won't be able to just learn that magic without the aid of an organ? I've seen humans casting fire spells, and I'm fairly sure they aren't drawing on special body parts or monster cores to do so. If they can cast that magic, then as a former human, I can cast it as well. It would be a waste to select something plain like that for my one choice organ. No. I'll have to choose something more wild, something more strange and difficult, something that would be much harder for me to learn on my own. But which should I choose? Chapter 80: Birth of the Mage. Ant. So which magical energy type to choose? Death sounds awesome. An unstoppable tide of undead ants would be cool, but my own family would need to be killed first. Plus there may be a chance I'll end up zombified like the death rabbit. No thanks. Time. I mean, time would be amazing, but how the heck would it work? Stopping time. Speeding up time. Traveling through time. Maybe too complicated. Entropy. Perhaps a bit too grim and macabre. I want something I can use in a fight, but also something that has some utility to it. Something I can make use of outside of combat in a significant way. I will always choose the all-around option. No weak points is my motto. Perhaps it is wasteful to think this way, but I just don't like the idea of something that has only one purpose. I want options, damn it. Illusion. Too artsy. I was always terrible at mental imagery and drawing. Space. Could be amazing, but I'm not certain it'll be fighty enough. Healing is tempting but won't help me out much when I'm on my own. Chaos. Sounds a little unpredictable. Mental would almost certain allow telepathy of some kind. I'm not quite as starved for conversation now that I have the pheromone language though. There is always a chance I'll be able to gain this ability another way without spending this precious selection on it. I'll pass on this for now. Maybe this one. Gravity. I feel like it has potential. What does Gandalf have to say about it? Gravitational energy allows for the creation and exertion of push and pull forces beyond natural limits. Sue. What would happen if I used my forceful mana ball and made it out of gravitational energy? Would I be able to push monsters away even more powerfully? Could I lift them into the air and then drop them? Could I make myself float? Could I crush my enemies into the ground? Could I even squash them in on themselves, squishing them into a tiny little ball? Compacting the biomass into a super dense bite-sized snack. I like it. I like it a lot, Gandalf. I'll pick this one. Okay, with that selection out of the way, I need to decide what to do with the remainder of my evolutionary energy. I've got cash to spend and I'm gonna make use of it. The first thing is my +5 bonus to cunning for choosing Mind Ant. With my cunning already so high, the cost of 5 cunning is extreme, much higher than spending on might. Just by my feeling, I estimate that +5 cunning would cost as much energy as +20 might. After all, the might stat is effectively just adding more muscle, bone and sinew, whereas making changes to cunning involves creating and connecting millions of neurons to form new and better brain matter. I've decided to use my bonus and some of my reserve to do what I didn't dare consider in my first evolution. I shall create a second brain. Normally, creating new brain matter would be a rather complicated matter, I don't doubt, but thankfully it is relatively simple for me. The evolution menu assists and guides my thoughts as I try to shape what I want. A small, additional brain to help bear the mental load of shifting and shaping mana. Practicing my mana skills been so mentally demanding that the rate of progress is too slow. In addition, practicing these skills leaves me so tired that I can't reasonably be leveling these skills and doing something else at the same time. To raise my skills all the way, I'd have to become a recluse in the colony, letting the rest of the workers feed me and never leaving. I'm not about to become a sponge. Hopefully with this second brain I'll be able to reduce the strain and be able to practice my magic skills whilst also being out hunting and leveling. Maximum efficiency. In the end, I use a significant amount of my energy finalizing my new brain matter, resulting in an overall gain of +7 to my cunning. There isn't any point investing in this brain if it isn't able to perform its job properly, so I gave a significant amount of extra kick in there to make sure it can take the load I'm going to demand of it. There really isn't enough energy left to consider going into the body part menus. Idly I take a quick look at the aura organs, and their cost in energy is simply staggering. For a moment my heart twinges with regret, but I push it to one side. The organs are in the menu, so there is still a chance I'll be able to purchase one someday in a future evolution down the road. The focus for this evolution is building the magical foundation. I briefly consider putting more energy towards cunning but eventually dismiss the thought. The cost is simply too high and there is lower hanging fruit to pick. I turn my attention instead to the will stat. This one is also costly, but I feel that boosting the strength of my thoughts and my mental defenses will only serve me well in my pursuit of magical excellence. After weighing the gains against the costs, I spend a good chunk of energy on my will, raising it by +4. About 30% of my evolutionary energy is left to spend, and I apportion it evenly to might and toughness. To get more bang for my buck, I reluctantly decide to emphasize size over density, going for a 3-to-1 ratio. This will make me significantly larger than before but gives a higher raw stat boost. For toughness I make the split roughly the same, increasing my external defense over my internal by a 3-to-1 ratio. Anthony is tanking up. I was already able to fight reasonably well against most creatures in the forest, and hopefully with these upgrades I'll be physically capable of holding my own against most monsters before my magical abilities can level up and show their true strength. After every last drop of evolutionary energy has been spent, I take a step back and have a look at my stats. Name: Anthony. Level: 1 core. Might: 41. Toughness: 29. Cunning: 32. Will: 22. HP: 50/50. MP: 50/50. Skills: Excavation level 4, Improved Acid Shot level 5, Grip level 4, Crushing Bite level 7, Advanced Stealth level 4, Piercing Chomp level 4, Tunnel Map level 1, Mana Shaping level 2, Forceful Mana level 2, External Mana Manipulation level 1, Mana Sensing level 1, Core Mechanic level 1, Exoskeleton Defense level 1. Mutations: Focused Eyes +5, Infrared Antennae +5, Restrictive Acid +5, Legs +2, Infused Mandibles +5, Diamond Carapace +5, Limb. Regeneration Gland +5, Pheromone Language +5, Gravity Magic Gland. Species: Mind Ant, Formica. Skill points: 1. Biomass: 1. Okay. This seems satisfactory to me. By focusing more on size I've been able to gain a solid 10 points of might, but I'll be increasing my size significantly as the trade-off. I'll probably need to focus on increasing my muscle density in a future evolution so that I can regain my balance between size and strength. With my increased external toughness and my diamond carapace, I'm more confident than ever before in my defense. Despite the relatively smaller stat changes, my gains in cunning and will are the big-ticket items in this evolution. The numbers may be small, but I'm sure the results will be impressive. Checking over my body parts, I'm still annoyed that I haven't managed to get all of them to +5. The long-neglected legs will be next, followed by my new gravity gland. I can't wait to advance both of them. It'll be harder though, since after this evolution my ability to take in biomass will be penalized yet again. Even a Titan Croc will provide half the biomass it did before, since I'm now actually further evolved than it is. Ewahahaha. Feels good. Okay, Confirm the evolution. Once again my mind starts to spiral away, like water down a drain when the plug is removed, and before long, everything has sunk into black.